Chapter 647. Night Frost. Moon Shadow Demon Lord's eyes flickered. Night Frost Demon Lord brushed away the stray hair on her forehead and smiled. It's me. What, you also want to ask me which path to choose? Oh, no, you won't ask me, because with me around, you won't be able to become the second Demon Lord. Moon Shadow Demon Lord did not speak, and only stared at her. Night Frost Demon Lord did not speak either. She smiled calmly. This made Nanguitian and Daoist Ru even more confused. Night Owl City had always been the most overbearing demon domain. One could imagine Night Frost Demon Lord's strength. She rarely fought personally, but Moon Shadow Demon Lord and Guifang Demon Lord were very polite to her and never got into conflict with Night Owl City. Moon Shadow Demon Lord could not kill Night Frost Demon Lord. That was for sure. But what about Night Frost Demon Lord? Knowing that he had accomplices, she jumped out just like that. Wasn't she a little too confident? Night Frost, do you think you can stop me? I can't, Night Frost Demon Lord said. However, I'll have to give you some trouble so that I won't be in vain for you to think so highly of me. Moon Shadow Demon Lord's murderous aura suddenly became heavy. After entering Carefree Valley, perfected Yuanmu and his group followed the route that Yuanjin had given them. They passed through the outer valley and into the inner valley. Finally, they turned into a pit. This pit was narrow and irregular, with obvious traces of digging. Occasionally, they could see things like mining hose scattered on the ground. After winding around the pitch-black pit for a long time, they passed by a place where they seemed to hear the sound of rushing water. There was another place where the strange aura was so strong that even the nascent soul cultivators like them felt their hair stand on end. After an unknown period of time, they suddenly saw a huge karst cave in front of them. Once they walked out, they saw more than 10 nascent soul cultivators standing at the side. When they saw them, everyone was on guard. Perfected Yuanmu glanced at them and realized that they were all nascent soul cultivators from various sections. He did not know why they had all stopped here. He gave Big Beard a look, and Big Beard understood. He took a step forward and bowed to them. Fellow Taoists. Seeing that he was treating them politely, the nascent soul cultivators let down their guard and greeted him. Among these cultivators, a chubby middle-stage old man grinned and said, "So it's Brother Zhao. Your Juyan sect is a little slow." Big Beard laughed and said, "I was delayed by some matters." Fellow Daoist Zhao, may I ask why all of you have stopped here? The chubby old man sighed when he heard this. It's not that we want to stop, it's because we can't. Big Beardy was taken aback. You can't walk over? The chubby old man nodded and pointed. Look, the road has been blocked by someone. It's impassable. Everyone from the Juyan sect went forward to take a look. Indeed, the passageway marked on Yuanjin's map had disappeared. The bearded man was a little stunned. What's going on? The chubby old man said, I don't know. We arrived just a bit earlier than you, but we found that the road was blocked. Moreover, fellow Taoist Yen from the Five Elements Valley said that the method used to block the road is a special kind of barrier, which contains the Tao of formation and is very difficult to break. He pointed to a bashful young man next to him. This young man seemed to have just formed his nascent soul and didn't look very stable. Seeing the chubby old man pointing at him, he hurriedly cupped his hands at Big Beard. The Five Elements Valley specialized in the Tao of formation. If the cultivators from the Five Elements Valley said that it was difficult to break, then it was really difficult. Big Beard asked about the situation and probed for a while before he went to report to Master Yuanmu. Senior Martial Brother Yuanmu, that fellow Taoist Yen shouldn't be lying. There is indeed a barrier. In my opinion, it's not something that can be broken in a day. This junior martial brother of his wasn't very outstanding in fights of magical powers, but he was quite talented in formations. Master Yuanmu believed in his judgment. He pondered for a while and suddenly thought of a possibility. He said in shock, Not good. Yuanjin might be trapped here. Hearing his words, all the cultivators from the Juyan sect looked surprised. After a moment of shock, Big Beard immediately thought that there was indeed such a possibility. All the way here, they couldn't contact Yuanjin, and the passage was blocked. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? If Yuanjun happened to be trapped inside, then it could be explained. Master Yuanmu quickly calmed down and thought quickly. Yuanjun is my blood relative after all. If something happened to him, I should be able to sense it. Moreover, once his life lamp is extinguished, the sect will immediately use a 10,000 miles sound-transmitting talisman to inform me. Since there's none of that, Yuanjun and the others shouldn't be in danger. They're just temporarily trapped. Big Beard nodded, agreeing with his judgment. Since Yuanjun and the others aren't in danger, shouldn't we go and save Junior Marshal Brotherling first?
Yes.
Master Yuanmu nodded. His eyes narrowed again. Let's go and look for them. Yuanjun said that there's another path here, but it's very difficult to walk.
We can only choose that path.
As they spoke, they suddenly saw two figures slowly flying out of the karst cave. One of them looked to be about 50 years old. He was dressed in silk clothes and embroidered shoes like a rich man from the secular world. He had a gold belt and jade belt. The other was dressed in a sky-blue Taoist robe, looking plain and delicate. Senior Marshal Brother Rui. The youth surnamed Yen from the Five Elements Valley called out. When the two people saw them, they slowly flew over. Fellow Taoists. Nan Guitian smiled. So you're already here. Fellow Taoist Nan. The chubby old man surnamed Xiao hurriedly bowed and asked, Fellow Taoist Nan, what's going on? Why is the path blocked? Nan Guitian sighed. That's why I'm here. Old Donkey Ma colluded with old Freak Yuing to steal the black tortoise's inheritance. However, he was worried that there were too many of us, so he sealed the path. Fellow Taoist Rui and I saw that the situation was chaotic, so we left early. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to escape. So that's what happened. The chubby old man was both shocked and angry. No wonder old Freak Yuing suddenly became so generous. He's up to no good. Taoist Rui said coldly. When did he have good intentions? Fortunately, I was already paying attention. Fellow Taoist Rui. Master Yuanmu suddenly spoke. Since fellow Taoist Rui was already suspicious, why did you still follow us? Upon seeing Master Yuanmu, Taoist Rui softened his tone and said with a bitter smile, Fellow Taoist Yuanmu makes it sound so easy. Your Juyan sect is a big family, so how can our Five Elements Valley be so relaxed? I'm not afraid of being laughed at by fellow Taoists, but it's better to believe it than not. Who knows, maybe this fated chance will fall into our hands. Upon hearing Taoist Rui's words, everyone felt distressed. Which one of them didn't think so? Otherwise, how could more than 20 nascent soul cultivators come as soon as Devil Monarch Yuing released the news? Decades ago, the world changed, and One Leaf Island and North Pole Island were destroyed. Now, the cultivation world in Yunzhong was short of manpower. They couldn't cultivate core formation cultivators, and nascent soul cultivators couldn't find spiritual treasures either. Since they had nothing to do, they might as well join in the fun. With so many people, Devil Monarch Yuing couldn't possibly capture them all at once, could he? The chubby old man said doubtfully, Fellow Taoist Rui, old Freak Yuing and old Donkey Ma are just two people. How can they do that? I remember that fellow Taoist Yi Shuang and monk Su Xiang also came. I don't think they have the guts. Fellow Taoist Xiao, there's something you don't know, Nan Guitian said. Yi Shuang and Su Xiang have been lured away. The two of them seem to be colluding with someone, and they've been prepared for a long time. Who did they collude with? What did they prepare? Master Taoist Yuanmu went straight to the point. Nan Guitian shook his head. The two of us aren't their match. When we realized something was wrong, we ran for our lives. The cultivators were silent, but they were frantically sending voice transmissions to each other. Whether it was their teammates or disciples, they were all discussing what Nan Guitian and Taoist Rui said. Did Devil Monarch Yuing really collude with old Donkey Ma? Or did they deliberately lure them away to avoid having too many competitors? They didn't believe Devil Monarch Yuing and old Donkey Ma, but they also didn't believe Nan Guitian and Taoist Rui. The competition for resources in Yunzhong was too fierce. Some of them wanted to save their lives, some wanted to snatch treasures, and some wanted to save people. For a moment, More than 10 people hesitated and debated, unable to make a decision. Senior brother Yuanmu, do you think they're telling the truth? Big Beard sent a voice transmission to Master Daoist Yuanmu. Master Daoist Yuanmu frowned. After a while, he said, "It's possible."
Ah.
Master Daoist Yuanmu said, "Others might not know what kind of person old Devil Yuing is, but we old fellows do. When he was young, he didn't keep a low profile at all. After he became a nascent soul, for some reason, he actually started to cultivate his character. If you say that he set up this trap, I'll believe you." Then Master Daoist Yuanmu hesitated again. "It's just that Nanguitian and Rui have always been inseparable from each other. It's not impossible to say that they're working together to deceive others." Looking at him, Big Beard knew that senior brother Yuanmu had gone crazy again. He had to think carefully about which was the truth before he made a decision. At this moment, 3 people came out of the pit. Everyone looked and saw that they were Teacher Yu and 2 other nascent soul Confucian cultivators from the Yu Mountain Academy. Seeing them, Teacher Yu was shocked. "Fellow Daoist Yuanmu, you're Mr. Yu." Master Daoist Yuanmu raised his hand in greeting, his gaze sweeping over the 2 people behind him. Yu Mountain Academy had lost some cultivators in the Sea of Returning Ruins back then. Among these 2 people, one had just formed his nascent soul in recent years. Of course, this wasn't the main point. The main point was that Yu Mountain Academy only had 5 nascent soul cultivators now. Including Han Shizhi, who was sent here first, they actually had 4. Could it be that Han Shizhi had obtained some news? While he was thinking about this, someone had already told Teacher Yu about the situation. After hearing that, Teacher Yu looked at Master Daoist Yuanmu. "Fellow Daoist Yuanmu, what do you think?" Master Daoist Yuanmu shook his head. "It's hard to say." Teacher Yu smiled. "My Yu Mountain Academy will have to take a gamble." After saying that, he cupped his hands at everyone and left with his 2 juniors. Master Daoist Yuanmu was stunned and hurriedly called out, "Mr. Yu." Teacher Yu stopped. "Fellow Daoist Yuanmu, what can I do for you?" Master Daoist Yuanmu narrowed his eyes and asked, "Mr. Yu, you seem very confident." Teacher Yu paused, a mysterious smile appearing on his face. "You can say that." After saying that, he turned around. "My Yu Mountain Academy isn't as big as Juyan Sect. When it's time to fight, we still have to fight." Chapter 648. After being replaced by Xiaofeng, Mo Tiange simply wanted to lie down. It had been many years since they were this crazy. In the past few days, people kept coming. The number of nascent soul cultivators outside had already reached 30, and the intensity of fights of magical power had increased a lot. They were almost numb to it. Fights of magical power, rotation, taking medicinal pills, and regulating their breaths. They didn't dare to relax even for a single step. Facing so many nascent soul cultivators, if it weren't for the fact that they still had a lot of medicinal pills, they might have already collapsed. "Damn it, is Juyan Sect coming or not?" "They'll come," Ling Yunhe said. Although he was tired, he was still very determined. Upon hearing his answer, Mo Tiange finally realized that she'd unknowingly asked that question. She patted her forehead in annoyance. Was she really so tired that she couldn't even speak? "Have you considered the possibility of Juyan Sect giving up on you?" With a young spiritual bead on him, she was relatively relaxed. Ling Yunhe paused for a moment, then slightly raised his head. "I haven't. You better think about it." Shi's tone was indifferent, as if he didn't consider whether Ling Yunhe could bear it or not. He said directly, "Juyan Sect isn't far from here. Besides, with such convenient transportation, there's no reason they haven't come by now." Ling Yunhe didn't say anything, but his gaze was somewhat confused. She didn't realize that his one sentence had broken a person's long-held belief. He was still guarding the door, not moving even an inch. Mo Tiange sat inside the spirit-gathering formation to recover her spiritual aura. She seemed to notice something as she looked at Ling Yunhe. After a long time, Ling Yunhe finally smiled at her. "I'm fine." "Is he really fine?" "I'm afraid not." Mo Tiange sighed inwardly. She recalled the trip to Returning Ruins several decades ago. At that time, he was still the most promising and most valued junior in Juyan Sect. Several decades later, he formed his nascent soul in one fell swoop, but his status plummeted. The affairs of the world were impermanent. There were only 4 words, but each word weighed 1,000 caddies. Mo Tiange didn't know whether treating Ling Yunhe coldly was right or wrong for Juyan's sect, but she knew that as the person involved, Ling Yunhe must have been very sad. She, on the other hand, cherished everything she had even more. Loneliness didn't mean that there was no one around you. There was no one in your heart. We can't place our hopes in Juyan's sect. Qin Shi's voice transmission entered her ears. She pondered the meaning of Qin Shi's words. You're saying that Juyan's sect probably won't come, so we'd better save ourselves? Yes. Qin Shi's tone was flat. We can't rely on others. Besides, Juyan's sect doesn't have a good impression of us. Even with the Lingyun crane here, we still won't have a good time. They had always known this. If things were a little better, Zhu Yenzong would ignore them and leave after saving Ling Yunhe. However, if that was the case, they could take advantage of the chaos to kill their way out. If things were a little worse, Zhu Yenzong would harbor a grudge and want to make a move on them. However, even with enlightened Master Yuanmu, it was impossible for Zhu Yenzong to sweep them all away. If they worked together, they were still very confident that they could escape. Either way, they couldn't be unprepared. What do you suggest? Qin Shi repelled the enemy with one sword strike, then sent Ling Yunhe a voice transmission. Fellow Daoisling, are you willing to part with your flying magic weapon? Ling Yunhe was confused. He looked at him and asked, What do you mean? Qin Shi said, We have a method that might be able to guarantee our safety, but we need that magic weapon of yours to buy us some time. To put it mildly, he was using his Dharma treasure to exchange for time. Ling Yunhe thought for a moment and said, Magic treasures are just external objects after all. No matter how precious they are not as important as life. That's good. Qin Shi then sent Mo Tiange another voice transmission. I've already asked Ling Yunhe to use his flying magic weapon to buy us some time. We'll enter the flying ship and then enter the virtual sky world. Mo Tiange was shocked. Take them into the virtual sky world? I once read in an ancient book that there are many space cracks like the one in Guishu Sea in this world. There are secret techniques that can refine keys to go in and out, such as the 5 sacred objects from back then. Your virtual sky world also uses keys, so you can just tell them that. Mo Tiange said, Aren't you just tempting their greed by saying that? Since it was a key, it could be snatched, and there were so many spiritual plants inside. It wasn't that she didn't want to trust her friends, but people's hearts were hard to fathom. Sometimes, the catalyst of the environment was very important. Qin Shi said patiently, How could I not know this? In the virtual sky world, you're a god. If you don't want them to know, it's very easy for you to do something. In this kind of situation, they're willing to advance and retreat with us, so it's obvious that they're sincere to us. They probably won't question us. In the end, he sighed again. I know this step is very dangerous. This is a test for both us and them. If we don't do well, we might be left with future troubles. However, in a life and death situation, our lives are still the most important. Mo Tiange carefully thought about this matter in her mind and felt it was very feasible. She was now in the middle stage, and among them, no one had a higher cultivation level than her. Moreover, they were good at formations, so it wasn't difficult to do something like this. They could set up a barrier around the medicinal field or directly surround the bamboo forest. As for future troubles, it was better than losing their lives. After the incident with Ren Yufeng, she deliberately used the virtual sky world less to avoid relying on it too much. However, this didn't mean she didn't use it. In a life and death situation, she still had to use it. With this thought in mind, she nodded. Okay, I understand. Qin Shi nodded. You arrange it and make sure we have time to retreat to the flying ship. After Mo Tiange agreed, he sent a voice transmission to Ling Yunhe. Fellow Daoisling, if it's dangerous, throw the flying ship out and we'll all hide inside. Ling Yunhe naturally agreed. After slightly recovering her spiritual aura, Mo Tiange stood up and took out many formations from her Qianquan ring. Starting from the entrance, she began to prepare carefully. In order to defend against the enemy, she had already arranged several simple formations at the entrance. Now, she carefully included these formations to enhance the defensive ability. "Qin," she said loudly, "let's work hard and hold on until she finishes arranging the formations." No one objected. However, when they saw Imo Tienga starting to arrange the formations, the attacks outside became even more fierce. After going through untold hardships, they finally left the cave. Master Taoist Yuanmu wiped his sweat. This section of the road was really dangerous. They had about 20 people. Although they didn't suffer any losses, half of them were eroded by this strange aura. Among them, 3 to 5 were particularly serious. It was estimated that it would be impossible to remove this aura without several decades. This kind of danger made Master Taoist Yuanmu feel very uneasy. If there was such a way out, there really was a possibility that they would be wiped out in one fell swoop. However, the enemy also had to be very strong. Devil Monarch Yu Ing alone wasn't enough. With this thought in mind, Master Taoist Yuanmu calmed down and concentrated on moving forward. Before long, he sensed a strong and sacred aura mixed with the aura of many cultivators. Normally, he didn't feel it, but now, compared to this strong aura, the so-called power of nascent soul cultivators was simply not worth mentioning. Seeing that the ground was paved with stone slabs and the walls were built with huge stones, Master Taoist Yuanmu finally heaved a sigh of relief. Although he could give up on Ling Yunhe if he had no other choice, he still had to save him if he could. After all, he was a disciple of Juyan's sect and was also the one recognized by the forbidding divine pearl. Everyone. After entering the sacrificial temple, the 5 people from Juyan's sect immediately occupied the passage and turned to face everyone. Master Taoist Yuanmu said in a heavy tone, "Everyone knows why we're here. Once we start fighting, we'll be enemies. However, fellow Taoists can also choose to be friends with us. I hereby promise that if you're willing to help, I'll definitely reward you. Even if you don't want to fight, as long as you don't become enemies with us, I'll also reward you." Master Taoist Yuanmu's approach was called using peaceful means before resorting to force. No matter how powerful Juyan's sect was, they only had a dozen or so nascent soul cultivators. Some were in closed-door meditation, some were traveling, and some were guarding the mountain gate. At present, those who could go out, except for Yuan Zhen and the other 2 who were trapped, were the 5 of them. However, there were more than a dozen nascent soul cultivators traveling with them, plus those who were already here. Even if Master Taoist Yuanmu was the current number 1 cultivator in Yunzhong, he couldn't defeat all these people, especially Yu Shusheng, a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. For those with average strength who didn't have enough allies, helping Juyan's sect was also a very good choice. As the number 1 sect in Yunzhong and the number 1 cultivator in Yunzhong, since Master Taoist Yuanmu said that he would reward them, it was something that was enough to move nascent soul cultivators. This was much more practical than blindly snatching the black tortoise's fated chance. Immediately, some people were moved. Some cultivators from small sects weighed the pros and cons and didn't intend to intervene. As for the remaining cultivators from large sects, needless to say, they wouldn't agree. Their fellow disciples were already fighting in front of them. Mr. Yu. In the end, Master Taoist Yuanmu's gaze fell on Yu Shusheng. Yu Shusheng gently waved his folding fan and said with a faint smile, "Fellow Taoist Yuanmu, do you still need to ask?" Master Taoist Yuanmu sighed. "Mr. Yu, I really don't want to fight with you." Yu Shusheng smiled and said, "It's not the first time we've fought over something. Fellow Taoist Yuanmu, why are you so sad?" Master Taoist Yuanmu smiled, and the exquisite pagoda appeared in his hand. Imo Tienga was the first to notice the movement at the entrance of the temple. The spiritual aura fluctuation was so violent, so the person who made the move was most likely a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. Just as she thought that, Ling Yunhe suddenly showed a pleasantly surprised expression. Martial Uncle Yuanmu is here." The others turned to look at him. Imo Tienga asked, "Fellow Taoist Ling, are you sure?" Ling Yunhe nodded without hesitation. "I can't be wrong. This is the aura of the exquisite pagoda. He used to be Master Taoist Yuanmu's favorite junior and often took him with him. He was very familiar with the exquisite pagoda, so it was impossible for him to be mistaken. Everyone was overjoyed. The people from Juyan's sect were here, so they had a chance to escape. Qin Shi glanced at Ling Yunhe and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Ling, your magic weapon is safe." Ling Yunhe also smiled. Fortunately, Martial Uncle Yuanmu came in time. Otherwise, I would have been broke. This flying ship cost me all my savings. Mo Tiange also smiled and secretly transmitted her voice to Qin Shi. You really came in time. We don't need to test them anymore. Qin Shi nodded slightly. It was best not to reveal his secret in front of people if he could. Unless he had no other choice, he also didn't want them to know about the existence of the virtual sky world. After all, it was always risky. Sharp whistling sounds could be heard. The fight outside the temple was getting more and more intense, causing the cultivators guarding the door to rush to help their fellow disciples. Qin Shi swept his gaze over them and said, "Let's also rush out." Chapter 649. The temple was in a mess. These nascent soul cultivators had never seen such a chaotic situation in their lives. More than half of the nascent soul cultivators in Yunzhong were here. Mo Tiange was even more shocked. In the Celestial Pole, there were 70 to 80% of them. Even Kuanzhong City didn't have so many nascent soul cultivators at the same time. The space was narrow, but there were many cultivators. Spells, magic weapons, talismans, and secret techniques were flying everywhere. It was as chaotic as a fight between mortals. Mo Tiange believed that if this place wasn't the Five Spirits sacrificial temple but an ordinary building, it would have been shaken and the mountains would have collapsed. As soon as they came out, they were attacked from all sides. Fortunately, the situation was too chaotic. Even if they attacked from all sides, they couldn't do it. Take this chance to run,
Qin Shi said.
Everyone nodded to show they understood. Ling Yunhe would be taken away by Juyan's sect, but they wouldn't. Taking advantage of the chaos, they should run as soon as possible. They shouldn't wait for Juyan's sect to save them. *******, 6 people stood beside the cracked canyon. They were Demon Master Moonshadow, Old Donkey Ma, Nanguitian, Taoist Rui, Han Shizhi, and the new nascent soul cultivator surnamed Yan from Five Elements Valley. All of them were silent, as if they were waiting for something. Not long after, a few figures flew over and quickly flew in front of them. Teacher. Han Shizhi bowed to greet him with a happy expression. Scholar Yu smiled gently and raised the folding fan in his hand. Shizhi, you've worked hard. I don't dare. This is what a student should do. Han Shizhi was arrogant, but he was respectful and humble in front of his teacher. Scholar Yu nodded with a smile and turned to look at Demon Master Moonshadow. Fellow Taoist Moonshadow, are you ready? Demon Master Moonshadow was indifferent. Of course. What about you? Scholar Yu said. Yuan Mu and the others have entered. We can start now. He then sighed. Unfortunately, Old Gua and Miaoying didn't take the bait. Otherwise, it's enough to kill Yuan Mu. Demon Master Moonshadow said coldly. The Moonshadow Demon Lord said coldly. Once Yuan Mu dies, Tai Mian will pass away. Without a late nascent cultivator to hold the fort, the conflict in the Juyan sect will intensify. If they use some tricks, it is not impossible for them to fall apart. At that time, the #1 sect in Yunzhong will disappear, and the power of the Dao sects will be greatly reduced. That will be the time for the demonic and Confucian sects to rise. What about Yi Shuang? Scholar Yu asked. Are you sure she won't be a stumbling block for you? Humph. At the mention of Demon Lord Night Frost, Demon Lord Moonshadow's expression turned ugly. If that old monk Su Xiang had not interfered, how could Night Frost have escaped so easily? Scholar Yu narrowed his eyes. Does this mean that Yi Shuang already knows? The Moonshadow Demon Master nodded reluctantly. However, they can't escape either.
Ha!
Old Donkey Ma grinned from the side. Taoist Yuing, why think so much? Even if they ran out, what could they do? Don't tell me you're afraid of them? The Moon Shadow Demon Master looked at him coldly. Old Donkey Ma, you don't have to fan the flames. That old monk Su Xiang has always disliked you. If he wants to seek revenge, you won't be able to escape. Old Donkey Ma blinked his small eyes and said, Taoist, you've really misunderstood me. This old man's lifespan is running out. Why would I want to get involved in these things? I just want to live a peaceful and stable life. That's enough. The Moon Shadow Demon Master snorted again. She did not believe him at all. Old Donkey Ma's lifespan was indeed running out. He was a cultivator of the same generation as the Guifang Demon Lord. Among the late nascent cultivators in Yunzhong, he was the oldest. However, this old man relied on his itinerant cultivator status to enter the ranks of the late nascent realm. His fated chances were top-notch. It was said that he had consumed a life-prolonging spirit fruit in the past, 400 to 500 years. Compared to the lifespan of a late nascent realm cultivator, it was not a lot, but it was not considered little either. Moreover, this old man had always been mysterious. Who knew if he, who looked like he had one foot in the grave, could hold on until they were all dead? Fellow Taoist Moon Shadow, can we start now? Scholar Yu urged. The Moon Shadow Demon Master nodded. Let's start. In the sacrificial temple, the scene became more and more chaotic. The place was too small, and the fight between nascent soul cultivators was noisy. With so many people, it was inevitable that innocent people would be hurt. Apart from their fellow disciples and a few good friends, most of them were in a relationship of mutual benefit. Most of them had experience fighting over treasures. When they were hurt by other people's spells, they were not sure if it was accidental or intentional, so it was inevitable that they would fight back. Because of this, the battlefield was quickly expanded. Compared to the others, Mo Tianga's group advanced and retreated in an orderly manner. 6 people and 1 beast, they attacked and defended together without any disorder. Mo Tianga had already put away the puppet. The place was narrow, so the few of them were enough to form a defense system. They fought and walked at the same time. Finally, they saw the group of people from Juyen's sect pushing their way into the main hall. Juyen's sect also walked very steadily. They did not have many people, but under the leadership of Master Taoist Yuanmu, they were orderly. Master Taoist Yuanmu's eyes flashed when he saw them. The next moment he shouted, Yunhe, you guys come here? He said you guys, not you. The corners of Mo Tianga's lips curled up into a smile as she met Qin Shi's gaze. Master Taoist Yuanmu was indeed a smart person. He obviously hated them very much, but he could still temporarily let go of his hatred and choose to cooperate with them. Yes, Martial Uncle Yuanmu, Ling Yunhe answered. Then he gave Mo Tianga a look and looked at the exit. Mo Tianga pondered for a moment and understood what he meant. He was telling them not to delay and to leave quickly. She smiled gratefully. In any case, Ling Yunhe's behavior was worthy of being called a friend. Right at that moment, a cold and gloomy aura spread, making people's hair stand on end. The cultivator near the entrance of the sacrificial temple looked back and instantly turned pale with fright. Ghost cultivators! Ghost cultivators! As he shouted, the cold and gloomy aura became stronger. All the nascent soul cultivators released their divine senses and found that a large number of ghost cultivators appeared outside, rushing towards the sacrificial temple. They were all brought here by Devil Lord Yuing, so they had never seen that ravine and didn't know there were so many ghost cultivators here. Now that they suddenly saw them, they were shocked beyond words. There were also ghost cultivators in Yunzhong, but they had all left the human world, so their numbers were also very few. However, the ghost cultivators outside numbered in the tens of thousands, and those in the nascent soul realm and above numbered in the hundreds. They were too shocked. There were actually so many ghost cultivators in Yunzhong? For a moment, everyone stopped. Master Taoist Yuanmu also stopped. He turned around and saw that the group of people from Yu Mountain Academy had disappeared, including Nan Guitian, Taoist Ru Yi, and the cultivator surnamed Yan from 5 Elements Valley, who came to help. A thought suddenly flashed in his mind, and he blurted out, "Not good." Big Beard asked, "Senior Martial Brother Yuanmu, what's wrong?" Master Taoist Yuanmu took a deep breath and said, "We've been tricked." Everyone from Juyan's sect and the other cultivators who heard this were all stunned. Master Taoist Yuanmu raised his voice and said, "Everyone, whether you believe it or not, I'm afraid we've been tricked by someone." Right after he finished speaking, a cultivator who had some friendship with Juyan's sect asked, "Fellow Taoist Yuanmu, what do you mean?" Master Taoist Yuanmu's gaze was like lightning. He turned to look at the entrance and said, "Everyone, why don't you think about it? Why did we come here? Who's missing here?" The cultivators pondered upon hearing what he said. Ling Yunhe was the first to react. Demon Monarch Yuing. Master Taoist Yuanmu looked at him with admiration in his eyes. He thought to himself, "This brat's intelligence is extraordinary, but unfortunately, he doesn't always do things as he wishes." After Master Taoist Yuanmu mentioned it, Mo Tiange was stunned for a moment before she suddenly realized something. "I see." Nie Wushang turned to ask, "What?" Mo Tiange said, "There's no hurry to snatch the primordial devil art. Why not wait until you're alone?" He acted so impatient and called these people to mess up the situation. "I'm afraid it's not as simple as snatching the cultivation technique." Master Taoist Yuanmu's gaze fell on her. Right now, half of the nascent soul cultivators in Yunzhong are here. Demon Monarch Yuing, Old Donkey Ma, and the others have already left. They're obviously determined to let these ghost cultivators trap us until we die. With the existence of the sacrificial temple, these ghost cultivators didn't dare to enter. At the same time, with so many ghost cultivators here, it would be very difficult for them to kill their way out. This was different from when they crossed the canyon. At that time, there weren't many ghost cultivators who discovered them. But now, someone deliberately lured all the ghost cultivators here. Also, Master Taoist Yuanmu said, "You Mountain Academy, Nanguitian, and Taoist Rui." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a sudden commotion in the sacrificial temple. If there were only Demon Monarch Yuing and Old Donkey Ma, they were only two people. Old Donkey Ma was an individual cultivator, and Demon Monarch Yuing only had Moon Shadow City as his subordinates. Based on the way devil cultivators existed, Moon Shadow City didn't have other nascent soul cultivators. But if you Mountain Academy, Nanguitian, and Taoist Rui were added, their numbers would be different. You Mountain Academy, Dawning Danxia Sect, 5 Elements Valley. Altogether, they had almost 20 nascent soul cultivators. If they were really trapped here, these 3 groups plus Demon Monarch Yuing and Old Donkey Ma would be half of the cultivation world's power in Yunzhong. "Why do they do this?" someone shouted. "What's in it for them to trap us to death?" Master Taoist Yuanmu smiled bitterly. One Leaf Island disappeared, and North Pole Island declined. Do you still need to tell me why? With the decrease in resources, there would be turmoil in Yunzhong sooner or later. It's just that I didn't expect the turmoil to come so soon, and these people were so ruthless. Making a move against half of the nascent soul cultivators in Yunzhong, these people were really generous. It was their fault for not knowing their surroundings well enough to know there were so many ghost cultivators here. At this thought, Master Taoist Yuanmu's gaze towards Mo Tiange was filled with dense, killing intent. If it weren't for the change in heaven and earth, One Leaf Island wouldn't have disappeared, and North Pole Island wouldn't have declined. The change in heaven and earth was definitely related to this junior. Yunhe. Master Taoist Yuanmu said calmly, "Come here." Sensing Master Taoist Yuanmu's killing intent, Yunhe hesitated.
"What?"
"Do you really want to betray Juyan's sect?" Master Taoist Yuanmu stared at him with a heavy gaze. "You have a grudge against the sect, so it doesn't matter if you travel with them. But if you don't come here now, you're betraying the sect." Senior Martial Brother Yuanmu. The bearded man cried out involuntarily. Junior Martial Brother Ling is just. Master Taoist Yuanmu glared at him fiercely, then looked at Yunhe. "Yunhe, come here. Don't mention what happened in the past. You're still a disciple of Juyan's sect. If you're good enough, Juyan's sect will still be handed over to you in the future. But if you don't come here," Yunhe suddenly sighed and asked, "Martial Uncle Yuanmu, do you want their lives?" Without waiting for Master Taoist Yuanmu to answer, he continued, "I don't know if you still remember what I said about them. Master Daoist Yuanmu's gaze froze.
He seemed to remember something.
Martial Uncle Yuanmu, I won't betray Ji Insect, but please forgive me for not listening to you. Yunhe looked calm and said indifferently, if I let you kill them, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Yunhe, Master Daoist Yuanmu couldn't control himself anymore and shouted fiercely. Yunhe didn't answer. He just said in a low voice, go back. Chapter 650. As soon as Ling Yunhe finished speaking, the 6 people and 1 beast immediately retreated before the others could react. The main hall.
Qin, she said.
They were some distance away from the square behind them, but the main hall was right next to them. But Wushang, Mo Tiange said worriedly. The aura of divine beasts in the main hall was very strong. Nia Wushang and Yang Qingji were fine. Nia Wushang immediately interrupted her. They no longer hesitated and flashed into the main hall next to them. Qin Shi waved his sleeve, and the stone door of the main hall was about to close. At this time, Master Daoist Yuanmu's exquisite pagoda arrived. The originally small and exquisite pagoda suddenly became big and smashed towards them. Jing Xingji's movements were also fast. The white tiger formed in the sword light and collided with the exquisite pagoda with a loud bang. The stone door was closed. Without hesitation, Ling Yunhe released the flying boat. Get on. They were well aware that the stone door would be broken soon and wouldn't be delayed for long. When they boarded the flying boat, the stone door was heavily hit and then opened. Come here. Mo Tiange said quickly. I'll take you to a space crack.
Don't resist.
When everyone nodded, she motioned for them to stand beside her. She put her hands together and touched the space between her eyebrows to call out the bead. At this time, the spell had already hit the ship. Mo Tiange looked indifferently at Master Daoist Yuanmu and the others outside the ship. She held their hands and a white light lit up, taking them into the virtual sky world. Without its master, the flying boat was quickly opened, and the inside was empty. Master Daoist Yuanmu frowned. Where did it go? But no matter how they looked, even if they dismantled the flying boat, they couldn't find any trace. The white light around them dispersed, and they opened their eyes. The place they were in was a bamboo forest. There were a few bamboo houses in the forest, and the spiritual energy was abundant. Outside the forest was a vast expanse of white fog, blocking their vision. This is... Nia Wushang was slightly stunned. Why did she feel it was familiar? A space crack, Mo Tiange said. I got the key by accident. Jing Xingji glanced around and muttered, such a strong spiritual aura. It should be formed in the distant past era, right? Probably. Mo Tiange said tiredly. We'll have to hide here for a while. You guys can do as you please. She then returned to her own cultivation room. Qin Shi also followed her inside as if he was very familiar with her. Xiao Feng revealed her true form and returned to her nest in the depths of the bamboo forest. Fei Fei came out to greet them, then went back inside. Lil Fan and Xiao Hua, well, they were cultivating. Xiao Hua had been working very hard recently. Xiao Feng had been providing it with the vermilion bird's breath, and it was time for it to break through to the 8th level. Lil Fan was absorbing the breath of the Xianwu. The others hesitated for a moment before following him into the cultivation room. Mo Tiange raised her eyebrows when she saw the 4 people standing in a row in front of her. She then took out 4 praying mats and threw them to them. Sit. The 4 of them sat down and stared at each other for a while. It was still Nia Wushang who broke the silence first. Have I been here before?
Yeah.
Back then, when we were chased by Mei Feng, we also hid here. But you were unconscious, so you didn't know. No wonder it's a bit familiar. Nia Wushang looked around and commented, it's really a good place. It's quiet after being chased. Yang Qingji asked, if we hide here, will we still be in the same place when we go out? Mo Tiange nodded. If the spaceship is destroyed, will it affect us? No, unless the space is torn apart, which might affect us a bit. Ling Yunhe looked around and said, it's such a pity that we don't plant spiritual plants in a place with such rich spiritual aura. Mo Tiange didn't say anything. She couldn't tell Ling Yunhe that there were actually a lot of spiritual plants. She just cut them off. Ahem. Qin, she cleared his throat and asked, "Fellow Daoist Ling, can you still go back to Juyen's sect if you do this?" Hearing those words, Ling Yunhe grew silent. "Yes, fellow Daoist Ling, if you leave like this, will Ling clan be in trouble?" Mo Tiange also asked. Ling Yunhe heaved a long sigh and said, "If I don't do this, should I just watch you get killed?" "We won't necessarily be killed," Jing Xingji said with a sneer. "There are only 5 people in Juyen's sect. Although Master Daoist Yuanmu's cultivation level is in the late nascent stage, his old injuries haven't healed yet." Ling Yunhe shook his head gently. "What about the others? From a certain point of view, today's events are related to you, Mo, Qin, and Yang. After your heavenly tribulation, the world changed and the continent shifted, which led to a shortage of resources in Yunzhong and led to today's events. Martial Uncle Yuanmu definitely has a way to stir up everyone's emotions and make you the target of everyone. We're already very tired, and we're completely relying on medicinal pills to support ourselves.
If we're besieged again, can we still hold on?"
Jing Xingji was silent. After thinking about it carefully, this was indeed the case. If Master Daoist Yuanmu stirred things up like this, would the cultivators in Yunzhong side with Juyen's sect or them? The answer was obvious. "If you get killed, I might never get that answer," Ling Yunhe said with a firm gaze. "I know there's a sword hanging over my head that might fall at any time, and this world might be destroyed. I can't eat or sleep well every day, so how can I give up this opportunity?" As for the Ling clan, he showed a bitter smile. "My great-grandfather is still here, so the Ling clan will be fine, but, in my opinion, it's still too early to worry about this." Niao Wushang interrupted him. "Whether we can get out or not is still another matter." "Yes." Niao Wushang's words immediately returned to the main topic. Mo Tiange sighed and said, "This time, we're really in big trouble. When we were trapped in the far west, we could still ask for help, but where can we ask for help now?" Jing Xingji frowned and said with a wretched expression, "We're really unlucky. We were trapped by ghost cultivators once, and now we're trapped for the second time." Wasn't the situation this time similar to the one in the far west? However, the ghost cultivators in the far west were conscious, and they were actively trapped. The ghost cultivators here, on the other hand, were unconscious and were guided by others. Speaking of which, how did Devil Lord Moonshadow and the others do it? They could actually get these ghost cultivators out of the canyon. Mo Tiange thought about it for a while. Niao Wushang shrugged indifferently. "Who knows? There are ghost cultivators in Yunzhong. Maybe this Devil Lord has dealings with ghost cultivators, so he knows some characteristics of ghost cultivators." Everyone was silent again. After a long time, Yang Qingji said, "Enough with the idle talk. What should we do now? There are nearly 50 nascent soul cultivators and so many ghost cultivators outside. Do we just wait like this?" "Yes, wait," Qin, she said. "We can't go out now, so we can only wait." "Wait until when?" Qin, she smiled and looked at Yang Qingji. "We've been waiting for dozens of years in the Palace of Immortals in the ruins of Returning Sea. Why can't we wait now?" Yang Qingji thought for a long time and sighed. "We can only do this." Ling Yunhe muttered, "Indeed, we can only wait. If we go out, Martial Uncle Yuanmu won't let us go." "Fellow Daoist Ling," Mo Tiange suddenly asked, "do you think they can leave?" "I don't know whether they can leave or not, but Martial Uncle Yuanmu isn't a person who will sit still and wait for death. He'll definitely think of a way." Ling Yunhe appeared very confident. This was the confidence he cultivated in the head as a disciple of Juyen's sect for a long time. "In fact, there's a very simple and stupid way," Jing Xingji said lazily. "As long as they don't fight among themselves and go out to kill a few ghost cultivators from time to time, then retreat to the sacrificial temple when they can't. If they keep killing like this, they'll eventually kill all the ghost cultivators." Everyone thought about it. This was indeed a way, but it would take a long time, but it was also relatively safe. No matter how many ghost cultivators there were, they were still limited. These people were all nascent soul cultivators. For them, the only threat was nascent soul ghost cultivators. The rest were nothing to worry about. More than 100 nascent soul ghost cultivators sounded terrifying, but if they were killed separately, it wouldn't be that difficult. If we can think of this, presumably Devil Lord Yu-ing can't. Qin, she said. In my opinion, they must have a backup plan. In that case, hiding here and watching the show is the best choice, Nia Wushang said after thinking for a while. Upon hearing this, Ling Yunhe looked conflicted. For him, facing people from Juyan sect and throwing away their lives was unbearable. It seems right. Mo Tiange thought about it carefully. In any case, we have nothing urgent to do. It won't be too late to leave after they rush out and both sides are injured. Right after she finished speaking, Ling Yunhe suddenly stood up. Fellow Daoist Mo, please take me back. The other 5 people's gazes all fell on him. Mo Tiange was surprised. Fellow Daoist Ling Yunhe said, the Ling family raised me, and Juyan sect raised me. Ling Yunhe was able to have today's achievements because of my sect elders. Now that they're in trouble, how can I only care about myself? Yang Qingji frowned. Fellow Daoist Ling, even if you leave now, Master Daoist Yuanmu won't necessarily forgive you, so why? A bitter smile appeared on Ling Yunhe's face. No matter how martial Uncle Yuanmu treats me, I shouldn't refuse what I should do. Saving you is out of righteousness, and going back to fight side by side with my fellow disciples is also out of righteousness. If I don't care about their lives, how can I say I didn't betray Juyan sect? Ling Yunhe was a person who never showed mercy when he needed to use means, but deep down, he retained stubborn loyalty. He wasn't like Jing Xingji, whose cold treatment after his master passed away made him lose his sense of belonging to the sect. If it were him, since he had already fallen out with them, why would he turn back? Ling Yunhe was different. He had always been an elite disciple of Juyan sect. He was focused on training since he was a child, and he was even personally taught by a nascent soul cultivator. Later, he even became the sect head and was regarded as the successor by Master Daoist Yuanmu. Even if he was disappointed later, the preferential treatment he received for more than 200 years wasn't fake. Let him go, Qin, she suddenly said. Mo Tiange was a bit surprised. Senior martial brother? If it were you or me, would we give up on our fellow disciples in this kind of situation? Mo Tiange was stunned and pondered with furrowed brows. If it were them, even if Lord Daoist Jinyang disagreed with them one day, it wouldn't change the fact that Xianqing School had protected them for hundreds of years. Mo Tiange sighed and stood up. Fellow Daoistling, come with me. Chapter 651. The sudden appearance of Ling Yunhe above the wreckage of the spaceship immediately attracted the attention of all the cultivators in the hall. Among the people of Juyan sect, Master Daoist Yuanmu's gaze was especially sharp. Ling Yunhe walked over to him, brushed his robe, and knelt down without saying a word. After a long time, Master Daoist Yuanmu finally snorted. What, didn't you want to advance and retreat with them? Could it be that they kicked you back?
No.
Ling Yunhe's expression was calm. I'm a disciple of Juyan sect, so I should advance and retreat with my senior brothers and sisters. Master Daoist Yuanmu flew into a rage and said mockingly, Advance and retreat with us? Didn't you just say you wouldn't listen to me? I'm sorry, martial uncle. Sorry? Is that all? Master Daoist Yuanmu wanted to slap him to death. Look at what you've done. You knew there was news of Black Tortoise, but you didn't tell the sect and even traveled with the sect's enemy. At the critical moment, you stood on their side and helped them escape. You did all this, and you only say sorry? Ling Yunhe said calmly, Martial uncle, it's not that I have news of Black Tortoise, but that they led me to Black Tortoise. Master Daoist Yuanmu was stunned.
What?
Ling Yunhe continued, Among them, fellow Daoists Mo, Yang, and Nye helped me in the past. A month ago, I met fellow Daoist Nye in the North Sea and was entrusted by him to send a message to the Celestial Pole. Thus, They led me to Black Tortoise and promised that if Black Tortoise recognized me as its master, they would help me obtain Black Tortoise. Master Taoist Yuanmu withdrew his angry expression and asked, "And the result?" "They kept their promise," Ling Yunhe said. "I obtained Black Tortoise's breath." Master Taoist Yuanmu didn't say anything and just stared at him. When the surrounding nascent soul cultivators heard this, their gazes turned greedy as they looked at Ling Yunhe. When these gazes turned from greedy to dangerous and restless, Master Taoist Yuanmu raised his head and released the spiritual aura of a late nascent cultivator, firmly stopping these people in their tracks. "Everyone, it's already been decided who the treasure belongs to. Don't cause any more trouble." Yuan Muzhin said word by word, his gaze sharp. "Moreover, we are besieged. It's hard to say if we can get out." As soon as he said that, all the cultivators hesitated. That's right. No matter how important the treasure was, could it be more important than himself? If he was trapped here and unable to escape, so what if he had more treasures? Enlightened Master Yuanmu's tone softened as he continued. "Fellow Taoists, Yuing, Old Donkey Ma, and the others have sinister intentions, intending to trap us here until we die. We should work together as one. If another dispute arises, how are we going to break through the siege?" He paused for a moment before adding, "If we manage to escape safely, the Juyan sect will naturally offer a gift of gratitude." After a series of threats and promises, Spiritual Master Yuan Mu finally managed to pacify these people. Then, he cast a soundproof enchantment around the people of Juyan sect and glared fiercely at Ling Yunhe. "Get up, I'll deal with you later." "Thank you, Martial Uncle." Ling Yunhe stood up and sat down beside the bearded cultivator. "Why did you guys suddenly disappear?" Immortal Yuanmu took a deep breath and asked, "You suddenly appeared again. Can they also suddenly appear?" Ling Yunhe hesitated for a moment, then said, "Martial Uncle Yuanmu, they helped me obtain Black Tortoise." His attitude annoyed Master Yuanmu again, but this time, he controlled himself and soon regained his composure. "Forget it, brat, you're just stubborn. You just need to say whether they're a threat to us or not." To this question, Ling Yunhe quickly answered, "Martial Uncle, don't worry. I can guarantee that." Master Yuanmu stared at him for a while, then finally sighed in compromise. "All right, I'll believe you this time." After making sure Ling Yunhe was fine, Mo Tiange closed the small mirror in her hand. This mirror was an ordinary magic weapon. As her cultivation level deepened, her control over the virtual sky world became more and more casual. Showing the scene outside the virtual sky world in the mirror was just a casual action. "Fellow Taoist Ling is fine. We don't need to worry about him anymore," Mo Tiange said. "Since you decided to wait, you can do as you please. It'll be fine as long as you don't destroy my place." Seeing that she looked exhausted and wanted to send them off, the three of them stood up. Nia Wushang said, "Rest well." Yang Qingji only cupped his hands. Jing Xingji giggled. "You want to drive us away so soon? You've been holding it in these past few days, haven't you?" How could they not understand what Jing Xingji meant? Qin Shi was indifferent. Mo Tiange glared at him. "If you say one more word, I'll kick you out." Jing Xingji sealed his mouth and went out with a sneaky smile. He even considerately helped them close the door. "I'm exhausted." Mo Tiange stood up on unsteady feet. She pushed open the door to the neighboring lounge and fell headfirst onto the bed. She then rolled over and buried herself in it. Qin Shi, who was following behind her, found it funny. He pulled her out and laid her down, then he also lay down. The two of them didn't speak for a long time. They just lay there quietly. Ever since they entered Carefree Valley, they'd been fighting nonstop these past few days. After an unknown amount of time, Mo Tiange suddenly said, "How long do we have to wait?" Qin Shi didn't open his eyes. "Are you in a hurry?"
No.
After denying it, Mo Tiange turned around and touched his face. "We won't stay here for another few decades, right? You'll be old if that happens." Qin Shi opened his eyes and leaned against her. "Am I old?" Mo Tiange retreated in defeat. By the time they regained their composure, Jing Xingji, Nie Wushang, and Yang Qingji had already started construction outside. They cut down most of her bamboo forest and built a row of bamboo houses. When Mo Tiange saw this, she felt so distressed that her heart was bleeding. She cut down half of this bamboo forest to build the bamboo houses. Later, Feifei used his white tiger strike to test it and cut down another half. Now, they cut down more than half of it, leaving only the outer half. This wasn't ordinary bamboo. Its texture was so hard that it could be used to refine magic weapons. You guys really aren't polite. She gnashed her teeth. Building so many houses. Do you want to take root here? Jing Xingji said shamelessly. You said it's up to you. Nie Wushang smiled. I don't care, but this guy insisted on building an immortal's cave for each of us. Cultivation rooms, lounge rooms, collection rooms, concocting rooms. We want all of them. Blue veins twitched on Mo Tiange's forehead. They even built suites. Qin Shi raised his eyebrows and cast a sidelong glance at Jing Xingji. You want to live here for a long time? Don't be so stingy. Jing Xingji put his hand on Qin Shi's shoulder. It's fine if my fiancé lives here in the future. Nie Wushang nodded seriously. You're right. It'll be convenient for you to marry into our family in the future. Jing Xingji turned his head and bared his teeth at her. Thank you so much for being so considerate for me. Of course, Nie Wushang said bluntly. When I think about how you'll call me martial uncle in the future, I think I should show more love to you. Jing Xingji found a problem. He seemed to have taken advantage of Qin Shoujing's future daughter, but it seemed he was a generation lower than her. Idiot. Glancing at him coldly, Yang Qingji went back to his room to cultivate. Inside the Black Tortoise Temple, under the leadership of Master Taoist Yuanmu, all the cultivators reached a preliminary cooperation agreement that day. All the cultivators trapped in the temple temporarily put aside their grudges and worked together until they were free. After resting for a few days, they divided into small teams according to how close they were to each other and went to test the ghost cultivators' strength. Among them, 20 stayed behind to guard the ghost cultivators, while the others attacked and stayed behind to support the ghost cultivators. The members of each team cooperated closely with each other. They didn't seek to attack by force, but to hold their ground. After this arrangement, all the cultivators put aside their prejudices and went out of the temple to test the ghost cultivators' strength. The result was very bad. These ghost cultivators didn't have consciousness and weren't very strong individually, but they seemed to have fighting instincts. As soon as they found people, they swarmed over like a swarm of bees. With this kind of fighting style, they had to fight 1 against 2 even if all 50 of them came out. Moreover, their bodies carried a strange dead aura. This dead aura was different from that of ordinary ghost cultivators. It had a very strong corrosive ability. Once it came into contact with it, it was very difficult to force it out. In the first test, 20 people were surrounded. In the end, 1 died, 2 were seriously corroded, and 7 or 8 were slightly corroded. 4 nascent soul cultivators. This was already a terrible casualty. This made everyone's expression grave and the atmosphere heavy. After 3 days, all the lightly corroded people were forced out of the dead aura, and the 2 seriously corroded people were saved but lost the ability to fight. The next test was even more cautious. Master Taoist Yuanmu even went out personally, leaving only 10 people behind to look after the ghost cultivators. The others all went out and tried to stick together, avoiding direct contact with the ghost cultivators to avoid being corroded by the dead aura. With a targeted plan, many people no longer held back and took out some magic treasures that could restrain ghost cultivators. This time, the test was very successful. They even killed 7 or 8 ghost cultivators, while most of them only suffered light injuries. This great victory encouraged all the cultivators. They finally had a little confidence in breaking out of the encirclement. More people were injured. This time, they rested for 10 days before taking action again. The cultivators made a series of targeted arrangements, leaving only a few people in the temple. But they still returned with a great victory, killing 5 ghost cultivators. However, they were not so lucky. This time, 2 or 3 people were seriously injured, and even more were lightly injured. Ling Yunhe was confused. We have experience, but why are there more injured people? Master Taoist Yuanmu thought for a long time and sighed. We neglected an important problem.
What is it?
Resources. Master Taoist Yuanmu said, the ghost aura of these ghost cultivators is hard to guard against. If they are slightly corroded, they can't rely on their own cultivation. They have to use elixirs, but the elixirs are limited. He spoke tactfully. In fact, after more than 20 years of consumption, the elixirs of the nascent soul realm had become much more expensive. None of them had many spare elixirs, which directly affected their speed of recovery. If the ghost aura was not completely expelled and they went into battle, their strength would be affected, and of course, more people would be injured. Then what should we do? Ling Yunhe pondered. Should we leave more time for rest? Master Taoist Yuanmu and the other elected temporary leaders considered for a day and finally decided to adopt Ling Yunhe's suggestion, to take a longer rest and try to completely expel the ghost aura. After recovering their strength, they would go out of the temple to fight again. If they deliberately slowed down, it would take them more than half a year to kill most of the ghost cultivators. Chapter 652. On the mirror, the main hall of the sacrificial temple was empty. They waited in the virtual sky world for a year. The trapped cultivators in the clouds finally killed all the ghost cultivators and left. They waited for more than half a month, but they didn't come back. Shouldn't we also leave? Mo Tiange asked the others for their opinion. Everyone looked at each other. In the end, Nia Wushang said, I think we can go. Jing Xingji stretched his waist. Let's go. It's not convenient to practice swordsmanship here. In fact, as soon as he started practicing, Mo Tiange rushed out and ordered him not to destroy the bamboo forest. But how big was this place? As a nascent soul sword cultivator, how could he control his swordsmanship within a few miles? That being the case, he didn't envy this so-called space crack at all. He wasn't a Dharma cultivator who could make a realm breakthrough by meditating. Yang Qingji also nodded. 4 devil cultivators, the rich spiritual aura here was nothing to be envious of. He couldn't wait to leave. Finally, Qinshi said, they've been gone for so long, they probably won't come back. Mo Tiange made a decision. Okay, let's clean up and go out. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly felt all the spiritual aura in her body flow and rush outside. Everyone was stunned. Jing Xingji, who was twisting his waist halfway, stopped. What's going on? Mo Tiange stood up and pushed the door open. She saw flashing spiritual light outside and countless spiritual aura visible to the naked eye rushing to one place. Xiaofan. She was surprised. Fei Fei squatted on Stone's shoulder. Stone sat in front of Xiaofan's nest by the stream and stared at it. When it saw them coming out, Fei Fei scratched its golden fur and said faintly, actually beat me to it. It was very resentful. It was the first spiritual beast to absorb the divine beast's breath, and it had already taken human form. How could it let Xiaofan beat it to it? It only had Black Tortoise's breath for a year. Mo Tiange said, who told you to be so lazy? Even Xiaohua is more diligent than you. I'm not lazy anymore. After he was ordered to enter closed-door meditation, he was already very diligent, but things like realm breakthroughs were hard to say. Qinshi said, Xiaofan is nearly 1,000 years old. It's always been diligent in its cultivation and has accumulated a lot of experience. Now that it obtained Black Tortoise's breath, it broke through its shackles in one fell swoop. It's not strange at all. Among the few spirit beasts, Lil Fan was the one who had accumulated the most. Moreover, it was well-behaved and never slacked off in its cultivation. Its advancement was a matter of course. After watching for a while, Mo Tiange raised her voice and said, Xiaofeng? In midair, Xiaofeng transformed into her human form. Her red clothes fluttered as she landed. Master, madam. I'll leave this place to you. Mo Tiange pointed at Xiaofan. Xiaofeng nodded. I understand. Let's go, Mo Tiange said. Xiaofan's realm breakthrough isn't something that can be done in just 1 or 2 days. Jing Xingji sighed. Another one? Mo Tiange ignored him and summoned the bead between her eyebrows. She then cast an incantation to send them out of the virtual sky world. The Black Tortoise sacrificial temple was quiet and devoid of any human activity. The 5 of them cautiously made sure that no one was around before coming out of the shrine. When they came out of the sacrificial temple, there was only a little dead aura around them. It was obvious that the ghost cultivators had all been killed. Going back along the original path, they found that the road was incredibly clean. The black water in the karst cave had decreased a lot, and the power of the condensed people was greatly reduced. Mo Tiange guessed that the black water also existed by relying on the dead aura produced by the ghost cultivators. Now that the ghost cultivators had been slaughtered and the source of the dead aura was gone, presumably the black water would also disappear slowly. After walking through the karst cave, they found that the cracked canyon was empty and only left with the dead aura. Looking down from above, they could vaguely see that the canyon was full of broken walls, tiles, and piles of bones. Presumably, this used to be a human settlement, but it suddenly encountered a shocking change, and everyone suffered a disaster. That was why it became a world of ghost cultivators. After passing the canyon and crossing the underground river, they drilled out of the cave and found that the atmosphere in Carefree Valley had changed greatly. The remaining spiritual aura fluctuated violently.
What's going on?
Jing Xingji frowned. Fighting alone shouldn't have such a big impact, right? Mo Tiange spread her divine sense and said a moment later. Sure enough, Devil Monarch Moonshadow and the others have long prepared a trap, waiting for them to step into it. What trap? A killing formation that's even more dangerous than the Great Mountain Protecting Formation of a big cultivation group. It's probably the work of 5 Elements Valley, Mo Tiange said. Let's go quickly. With such a great formation, Carefree Valley is full of danger. If we get dragged into it again, it'll be troublesome. Everyone understood that the 2 forces in Yunzhong were fighting, so they'd better leave as soon as possible. Following Mo Tiange, they took many turns, bypassed the dangerous formation, and quickly left Carefree Valley. There was no one outside Carefree Valley. It was no longer as grand as before. Without any delay, they left Jialing Mountain Range and went to the nearest cultivator town to borrow a transporting formation. When they arrived at a small town not far from Jialing Mountain Range, they found that there were many high-level cultivators coming and going in the town. Among them, there was no lack of nascent soul cultivators, while the low-level cultivators were trembling with fear and acting cautiously. Yang Qingji volunteered to scout for information. After a while, he came back and said, Yunzhong is in chaos. Mo Tiange hastily asked, What's the situation? Yang Qingji said, Sure enough, Devil Monarch Yuing set up a trap in Carefree Valley. More than 50 nascent soul cultivators were killed or injured, and only 20 managed to escape, including Master Taoist Yuanmu of Jiyan Sect. In the past year, Yu Mountain Academy, Danxia Sect, and 5 Elements Valley put pressure on Jiyan Sect. Nearly 10 nascent soul cultivators from Jiyan Sect went missing, and the people of Jiyan Sect were in chaos. Fortunately, they had a solid foundation and Master Taoist Iron Mask oversaw the situation, so they managed to hold on. As soon as Master Taoist Yuanmu escaped and returned to Jiyan Sect, he declared war on the 3 great sections. Nie Wushang said in surprise, although Jiyan Sect is powerful, how can they fight against the 3 great sects? Are their losses serious? It doesn't seem serious. Jiyan Sect didn't announce how many casualties they suffered. Jiyan Sect naturally wouldn't announce this kind of information. However, judging from their confident looks, their losses shouldn't be big. Qin Shi said slowly. The nascent soul cultivators who escaped from Carefree Valley all chose to stand on Jiyan Sect's side. The 3 great sects schemed against them. So how could they tolerate this? In this way, both sides can stand on equal footing.
Exactly.
Yang Qingji nodded. The Devil Path and the Buddhist Path aren't calm either. Night Owl City also declared war on Moon Shadow City. Venerable Xuxiang and Devil Monarch Knight Frost joined hands to attack Moon Shadow City. There's also old Donkey Ma. In the end, he sighed. Most of the forces in Yunzhong are involved. Presumably, it won't be peaceful for at least several decades. What about Lingian? Mo Tiange asked. Do you have any news about him? He's fine, Yang Qingji said faintly. It can be said that he profited from a disaster and regained Master Daoist Yuanmu's trust. Mo Tiange nodded. She felt relieved if that was the case. The five of them were silent for a while. In the end, Mo Tiange said, Fellow Daoist Yang, what do you plan to do next? Yang Qingji said without hesitation, I don't want to get involved in Yunzhong's affairs, but if you have any news about the sacrificial temple, please allow me to go with you. Mo Tiange nodded. After fighting side by side this time, Yang Qingji proved his trustworthiness with his actions. They had no reason to refuse such a helper. Then, shall we go back to Yunzhong? She turned to look at Qin Shi. Qin Shi uttered and said, Yunzhong is in chaos, so it'd be better for us to leave. What about you? He looked at Jing Xingji and Nie Wushang. Nie Wushang said, I want to enter closed-door meditation for a while, then I'll go back to Yunzhong to solve a matter. She looked calm. Obviously, she had already thought about it carefully. Mo Tiange thought for a moment and immediately knew what matter Nie Wushang wanted to solve. She looked at her and said, If you need help, come to me. Nie Wushang nodded then smiled. I'm afraid I won't have this chance. I have to do this matter myself. That was her own karma. Mo Tiange also smiled and patted her shoulder. Then I wish you all the best. What about you? Are you willing to accept my suggestion? Qin Shi looked at Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji stretched his body then said, I'll go back with you. He seemed to say it casually, without the slightest hesitation. Presumably, he'd thought about it for a long time. Qin Shi was surprised to see him agree. You've thought it through? Jing Xingji smiled faintly. You're right. At this critical moment, what's the use of thinking about those things? Gujian's sect is my beginning. I want to go back and take back everything my master lost. Perhaps he didn't have the same reverence for Gujian's sect anymore, but there were people he respected in Gujian's sect. Whether it was his late master or venerable swordsman Yuanying, he didn't want their efforts to go to waste. If it was really like what they said, that the world would be destroyed after the world fell into chaos, he still wanted to go back to Gujian's sect. Hey, if you go back to Gujian's sect, what's your title? Venerable Swordsman Xingji? No, I have to pick up goosebumps. Jing Xingji rolled his eyes at Mo Tiange and said, Among our Gujian sect's titles, some are names, some are Daoist names, and some are sword names. I've never taken a Daoist name, so I'll naturally take my sword name as my title. Although Gujian sect was also based on Daoist laws, it wasn't like orthodox Daoist groups where core formation cultivators took Daoist names, Dao masters, and Lord Daoists. Whether they took Daoist names or not was entirely up to them. Among venerable swordsman Nascent Soul, Yuanying was his name, Fuling and Zhongguang were his Daoist names, and Xiaohe was his sword name. Jing Xingji's name was 3 characters, and he didn't have a Daoist name, so he naturally followed the habit of taking his sword name as his title and took it as Venerable Swordsman Stillwater. Venerable Swordsman Stillwater, Venerable Swordsman Stillwater. Mo Tiange repeated it twice and held back her laughter. They really match. Jing Xingji ignored her. Congratulations. Nie Wushang nodded at him with a smile. Jing Xingji, who was used to Nie Wushang's sarcastic remarks from time to time, felt awkward and asked cautiously, Are you normal? Nie Wushang stopped smiling and said seriously, Do you want to change your sword name? If there's nothing else, let's go. Qin Shi said, Our group is too eye-catching, so we better not stay here for too long. Mo Tiange nodded and said, Let's leave a message for Ling Yunhe. After all, he's now our companion. No one objected. Mo Tiange thought for a moment, then said to Nie Wushang and Yang Qingji, You two have the primordial devil great technique, so you'd better leave Yunzhong to avoid running into Moon Shadow Devil Monarch. Yang Qingji said, I still have some things to deal with. After I'm done, I'll leave Yunzhong and maybe go to the Celestial Pole. Nie Wushang said, I've already decided to go to Shaoyang to hide. And Mo Tiange was stunned. Shaoyang? And Nia Wushang nodded. Shaoyang is a barren place with complicated people. It's a good place to hide. Whether it's Yunzhong or the Celestial Pole, they're not suitable for me right now. And Mo Tiange thought of Master Song Feng and sighed. The five of them finally agreed that Yang Qingji would send a message to Ling Yunhe, then they would exchange 10,000 miles sound-transmitting talismans with each other to decide on a place to contact each other. Chapter 653. After returning to Xianqing School, they went to visit Lord Daoist Jinghe. Lord Daoist Jinghe was very satisfied with their return after more than a year. How was it? How was your harvest? This question stunned them for a moment. After thinking about it carefully, it seemed that apart from Xiaofan obtaining Black Tortoise's breath, they didn't gain anything else. Did they work for nothing? After they told their experiences, Lord Daoist Jinghe waved his hand. It's good that you got Black Tortoise's breath. Wait until you go to the last sacrificial temple and see what's going on. Mo Tiange pondered for a while and asked doubtfully, Master, the friend senior Hupa mentioned seemed to have a hard time going to the sacrificial temple. Why did it seem easy for us? If no one fought for it, it would have been a smooth journey without any twists and turns. But we didn't discover the so-called secret at all. Did we do something wrong? Lord Daoist Jinghe said, I've thought about this a long time ago. It's indeed not right. However, this is only what Senior Hupa told us. We don't know the truth. We don't know enough, so we can't make inferences. Mo Tiange sighed. She also knew it was difficult to infer the truth with such little information. Okay, you two can go and rest. We have no clues about the Qilin sacrificial temple. I'm afraid we'll have to slowly inquire about it. Just concentrate on cultivating. Yes, Master. The two of them answered and asked about the sex situation before leaving Shangqing Palace and returning to the cave in the extreme abyss pool. Grandmaster. Upon seeing the two of them, Xiaoguzi and Xiaozue, who were sitting back to back and laughing while reading a book by the pool, were so shocked that they hastily stood up. Greetings, Grandmasters. Welcome back, Grandmasters. Mo Tiange was amused. Why are you so scared? Xiaoguzi looked up and saw that they weren't angry. He smiled and said, Disciple lost his composure. Grandmasters, please don't blame me. Just don't go out and embarrass yourselves. She had already gone inside. Mo Tiange said, Call them here. Yes, Grandmaster Qingwei. Soon, all the disciples came to greet her. Yiwen and Shisu were still absent. She trained them to serve the sect, so she didn't care. Yizhenji and Shui Linbo were both absent. Yizhenji had made up his mind to train himself well, so he had been killing enemies on Demonic Mountain in recent years, while Shui Linbo went out to look for opportunities to form her gold core. Sang Yushu, Xia Jingyi, and Shi Yunshu remained in the cave. Hearing the news, the three of them hurried over to pay their respects. The two of them carefully asked the disciples about their homework and were quite satisfied. As expected, it was right for them to not only look at aptitude. Other than aptitude, temperament was even more important. Look at these three people. Where else could they find such worry-free disciples? You're very good, Mo Tiange said gently. However, when it comes to cultivation, you have to have a limit. You can't force yourself. Your foundation isn't very solid, so you mustn't be too hasty. You should know that the age at which you form your gold core, or your nascent soul, is just an empty title. The most important thing is to walk step by step steadily. Thinking about it, she felt that as the youngest nascent soul cultivator in the Celestial Pole, it seemed a bit like showing off her age was not important, and it was hard to convince others, so she continued to say, On this point, I have the most experience. If you can make a realm breakthrough later, when the conditions are right, you'll succeed naturally. Compared to advancing earlier, you'll have fewer hidden dangers and can go further. Her two disciples and Sang Yushu nodded in agreement. They had all heard that when Lord Daoist Qingwei built his foundation, he deliberately slowed down his cultivation speed. At that time, they just felt envious, but now they had a different understanding. After teaching her for a while, she sent her 3 disciples away. The 2 of them sat opposite each other and didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, she asked, "What are you thinking about?" After a while, Mo Tiange answered, "I'm thinking about Yunzhong." "What's wrong?" Mo Tiange took some time to think, then said, "Say, for this kind of thing to suddenly happen in Yunzhong, is it because of fate?" She was stunned. She continued to say, "Think about it. What Demon Lord Yuing did was too bold. Did he just want to trigger a melee in Yunzhong? If it were me, since I decided to trap and kill these people, I would make sure no one was left alive." She paused and asked, "How do you know Demon Lord Yuing didn't think that way?" "But only half of the trapped cultivators were killed or injured." She shook his head. "We only see the result, but we can't see the process. Maybe Demon Lord Yuing originally had a foolproof plan, but it failed." Mo Tiange tilted her head and thought about it. She nodded slowly. "It seems, and what you said makes sense." She said, "Of course, it's also possible that there was a problem with their plan, or the strength of the trapped people was beyond their expectations. We're just outsiders and can only see one side of it." Mo Tiange was lost in thought for a while and said, "The world changed and the continents changed positions. We and the demonic cultivators met, which led to a war. Yuan province lost its good position and was connected to the demonic cultivators' continent, so it faced a life and death situation. Now, Yunzhong is in chaos because of the decline of One Leaf Island and North Pole Island. The world changed because of us. In other words, is it all because of us?" "I don't think so," she said faintly. "We still don't know why the world changed. Even if it's because of us, so what? Mortals say that everything is predetermined, let alone something that concerns billions of people in the world. We're just an inducement. Besides, Senior Hoopa said that the world is in chaos and evil thoughts are everywhere. In my opinion, people's hearts are the root of the chaos. Look at Demon Lord Yuing. If he wasn't greedy, why would he do this? Old Donkey Ma, Teacher Yu, and the others are even more so." Mo Tiange thought for a while and sighed. "Forget it. It happened anyway. It's meaningless to look into the cause. Yes, if we want to know the root of all this, we have to solve this mystery. Maybe we'll get the answer when we go to Qilin." Mo Tiange hesitated. "Senior Martial Brother, do you really think we'll get the answer if we go to Qilin? We've been to 4 sacrificial temples, but we didn't get anything." She smiled. "Even so, we have to go to Qilin. We know too little and can do too little. There's nothing else we can do except this." And several days later, news came from Kuanzhong City that Jing Xingji had returned to Gujian sect and was called Venerable Swordsman Stillwater. Mo Tiange giggled. He was really called Venerable Swordsman Stillwater. Speaking of which, his return made Gujian sect overjoyed and Tiandao sect worried. In addition to Venerable Swordsman Yuanying, there were 2 other nascent soul sword cultivators in Gujian sect. They were both in the early stage and seemed to have mediocre aptitudes. Jing Xingji's return happened to fill this gap. He had high aptitudes, strong swordsmanship, young age, and was already in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, so it was very likely that he would advance to the late stage. As for Venerable Swordsman Yuanying, he was about the same age as Lord Daoist Jinyang. If there were no accidents, he could live for another 600 or 700 years. If Jing Xingji had enough fated chances, this amount of time would be enough for him to advance to the late stage. As long as there were cultivators in the late stage of a nascent soul realm, Gujian sect could always maintain its transcendent position. As for Tiandao sect, they only had 5 nascent soul cultivators. If no more disciples advanced to the nascent soul realm, they would be suppressed by Gujian sect sooner or later. Jing Xingji's return almost made Luding Yuan's head turn white from worry. Compared to Tiandao sect, Xianqing school was much calmer. Gujian sect had many nascent soul cultivators, but were they more than them? The current Xianqing school wasn't the Xianqing school from 200 years ago. Besides, with that huge amount of resources, would they need to worry about having no successors? Speaking of which, The disciples attracted by Qin Shi's soul formation were also about to form their gold cores. The sex in the celestial pole grew and declined. Generally speaking, it was still stable, but Yunzhong was a mess. After the incident in Carefree Valley, Juyan sect had a falling out with Yu Mountain Academy, Danxia sect, and Five Elements Valley. They united with the small and medium-sized cultivation groups that were killed in Carefree Valley and fought each other to the death. The cultivation world in Yunzhong had been peaceful for too long. Once this fight broke out, the losses were especially huge. However, no one could stop. Nearly 30 nascent soul cultivators died at the same time. How shocking was that? How could the sex of those fallen cultivators swallow this anger? This kind of blood feud would certainly be passed down from generation to generation until one side was defeated or ended by a stronger force. And all of this had nothing to do with Mo Tiange and the others who left Yunzhong. ****** Inside the virtual sky world, the spiritual aura was almost tangible. In front of Xiaofan's house, a vast and distant aura gathered the water spiritual aura into a stream. Xiaofang came to greet them. "Master, madam." Mo Tiange asked, "How is it?" Xiaofang reported, "It's almost done. It'll probably happen in 1 or 2 days." Mo Tiange nodded, then asked, "What about Fei Fei and Xiaohua?" "If nothing unexpected happens, Xiaohua will make a realm breakthrough in 3 to 5 years. As for Fei Fei," Xiaofeng shrugged. "His situation is unusual. Probably only he knows about it." "Then what about Shirtu?" Mo Tiange turned her head to look, but she couldn't find Shitu's huge body. "Madam, what do you want to ask?" "If it's cultivation level," Xiaofeng said with some embarrassment. "Please forgive Xiaofeng's ignorance, but I really don't know how to classify it, so..." On the surface, Shirtu looked like a demonic beast, but its flesh and blood had long changed and now looked like Shitu's. Moreover, its aura was mixed, so it really couldn't be classified. "Forget it." Mo Tiange decided to give up. "Shirtu isn't our spiritual beast. He's just Fei Fei's friend. Don't worry about him. Just let him live there." Xiaofeng nodded. Just as she was about to report the situation of the virtual sky world, the stream in front of Xiaofan's house suddenly moved, and the water rushed into the house. With a splash sound, the house was suddenly washed away, revealing a huge mass of water. A person was wrapped in the clear water. As the water swirled rapidly, it slowly became shallow. When the water ran out, that person slowly fell to the ground. This was a teenager about 18 or 19 years old. He looked a bit older than Fei Fei, but he didn't have Fei Fei's bewitching handsomeness. He was dressed in low-key cyan gray clothes, plain and unremarkable. However, if one took a closer look, they would find that his eyes and brows were clear with a hint of shyness. His whole body was like water, incomparably clean, making people unable to have any filthy thoughts. "Greetings, master." After landing, the teenager stepped forward and saluted Mo Tiange. Seeing Qin Shi beside her, he wanted to salute him too, but he hesitated. He didn't know what to call Qin Shi, so he showed an embarrassed expression. Seeing this, Mo Tiange smiled and said, "Xiaofan?" "Yes." Xiaofan regained his composure. "How was it? Did the transformation go smoothly?" And Xiaofan looked happy and said, "I've integrated the black tortoise pearl into my beast core, and all my spiritual aura has been transformed into black tortoise's breath. I'm no different from divine beast black tortoise now." "That's good." Mo Tiange felt that his breath was solid, so there shouldn't be any future troubles, so she said, "Get ready. We're going out to cross the tribulation." Chapter 654. In the sky above Clear Spring Peak, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Shocked, Xianqing school disciples rushed out of their caves to watch this amazing scene. "Look, what's this? Is someone forming his gold core?" "No." Another disciple curled his lips. "Last time Martial Uncle Dingguan formed his gold core, it wasn't like this." "What? What's that?" The wind was so strong that they couldn't even stand stably. Before they could chat, A core formation cultivator flew into the air and shouted, "All disciples, return to your caves and activate the defensive formation. No one is allowed to go out without orders." His voice was enhanced by a spell. It traveled far and wide and repeated several times. The aura refining and foundation building disciples returned to their immortals' caves with doubts in their hearts. In the end, they were all guessing what kind of extraordinary thing had happened. After the low-level disciples returned to their caves, Xianqing School's great mountain protecting formation was activated. Except for Lord Taoist Lingxi, who was in closed-door meditation, the other 4 nascent soul Lord Taoists who stayed in the sect all appeared in the air above the main peak. They stood in 4 corners with a teenager in a green and gray robe in the middle. After the dark clouds gathered, the first thunder fell. The earth-shattering feeling made the low-level cultivators panic. However, when they thought about the nascent soul patriarchs in the sect, they all calmed down and meditated in the cave abode, waiting for news. Mo Tiange and the others had already experienced the shape-shifting heavenly tribulation. Now that they were inside the sect, there was a great mountain protecting formation above them, and there were 4 nascent soul cultivators watching over them from below. Although the commotion was big, it was stable. Xiaofan's heavenly tribulation was the same as Xiaofeng's. Not only did it have 10 tribulations, but it also had golden lightning in the end. Presumably, it was because he inherited the divine beast and had the bloodline of the black tortoise. Half a day later, the clouds in the sky dissipated, revealing a clear sky. The great mountain protecting formation returned to its half-open state. The core formation cultivators of each peak flew into the air and shouted, "The ban has been lifted. All disciples can go out freely." Upon hearing that, the low-level disciples felt relieved and hurriedly went out to inquire about what happened. Soon, a piece of news spread throughout Xianqing School. Another nascent soul, no, an 8th-rank beast cultivator appeared in the sect. Xiaofeng's matter wasn't concealed, so most Xianqing School disciples knew about it. Under Lord Taoist Shoujing's name, there was a demonic beast that passed the transformation tribulation and became a demonic cultivator, which was equivalent to the school's 9th nascent soul cultivator. Now, another demon beast under Dao Lord Qingwei had advanced to take on a human form and was equivalent to the 10th nascent soul cultivator. Many of the disciples were overjoyed by this news. In addition, the sect had been extremely generous in the past 10 years, and the number of foundation establishment and core formation cultivators had been increasing day by day. They couldn't help but have incomparable confidence in the sect. Xianqing School was indeed the #1 cultivation group in the Celestial Pole. Even Tiandao sect at its peak couldn't compare to them. After receiving her school uniform and identity tablet, Yifan returned to the extreme abyssal pool alone. Mo Tiange and Qin she didn't leave. Together with the 2 Lord Taoists, Jinghe and Huayan, they sat in the Hall of 3 Pure Ones. Demon Cultivator, ha! A demon cultivator. Lord Taoist Jinghe drank a cup of tea, then cast a sidelong glance at the 2 of them. "You 2 little brats, you're really quiet." Apart from the spirit beast sect, he had never heard of any sect having a spirit beast that could transform into human form. "It's fine if there's only one of you, but there's a second one. Hurry up and tell me, are there more?" Mo Tiange smiled. "Yes, I still have 2 more spirit beasts that are about to transform into human form."
Ah.
Lord Taoist Jinghe was stunned. "You really have more?" "Yes." Mo Tiange tried to be low-key, lest this childish master would make a fuss. Lord Taoist Jinghe didn't make a fuss, but he glared at her and muttered indignantly, "Humph. All the good things are yours. Humph." During the heavenly tribulation just now, she actually used her natal magic weapon to collect the lightning of the heavenly tribulation. That was heavenly tribulation lightning, and it was the golden lightning among the heavenly tribulation lightning. He almost hated himself for not having a thunder spiritual root. "Master." Qin she called out and glanced at him faintly. He could see the meaning behind Qin she's words. "Don't be childish." Lord Taoist Jinghe felt even more indignant. Accepting these 2 disciples was simply to piss him off. Shoujing, Qingwei, Lord Taoist Huayan spoke in time and looked at the two of them with a smile. I haven't congratulated you yet. You've gained another big helper. Senior martial brother, you're too polite. Qin, she said with a smile. These spirit beasts are still far from being able to stand on their own. In any case, it's a good thing for them to advance and take human form. Lord Taoist Huayan paused for a moment and brought up business. Yesterday, I sent a message to Kunzhong City. Senior martial brother Zhenyang was very happy and told us to do everything as usual and ignore other things. They'll handle it. Do everything as usual? Mo Tiange looked up.
Yes.
Lord Taoist Huayan stared at them gently. Senior martial brother Zhenyang has considered the matter in Yunzhong and specially told us that it doesn't matter if we don't get anything. Man proposes, God disposes. Senior martial brother Zhenyang also thinks that everything can only be concluded after we find the Qilin. The sect has been looking for clues about the Qilin. You two just need to cultivate. Only when you have enough strength can you be prepared. Yes, Mo Tiange and Qin Shi answered at the same time. By the way, you won't be in closed-door meditation soon, will you? Mo Tiange and Qin Shi looked at each other and shook their heads.
No.
Then you should spend more time teaching your disciples. In any case, we're the nascent soul Lord Taoists of the sect. Teaching them casually might be the best way to heaven for those disciples. Yes, I'll follow Senior Martial Brother's instructions. Mo Tiange secretly glanced at Lord Taoist Jinghe, who was still angry and ignoring them, and thought to herself, Senior Martial Brother Huayan is acting like a teacher. Master, you can forget about it, since it was the decision of her senior martial brothers, Mo Tiange and Qin Shi also cultivated and taught disciples in the sect with peace of mind. More than 10 years ago, when Lord Taoist Jinghe took charge of the sect and began to train disciples, he said that just like aura refining and foundation building disciples, core formation cultivators would also hold a monthly spell assembly. Core formation cultivators were different from low-level disciples. After they entered the core formation realm, they had their own understanding of cultivation and had chosen the path they wanted to take, so they didn't need to be guided step by step like before. Therefore, this spell assembly was mostly about core formation cultivators raising questions and nascent soul Lord Taoists explaining. There were only a few nascent soul Lord Taoists staying in the sect. Needless to say, Lord Taoist Lingxi was always in closed-door meditation, and only Lord Taoist Jinghe and Lord Taoist Huayan were alive. Therefore, the spell assembly didn't have a fixed location. Lord Taoist Jinghe would give a talk in Shangqing Palace, and Lord Taoist Huayan would occasionally give a talk in Seoul's Retreat Peak. After Mo Tiange and Qin Shi returned, they also joined the ranks of the main speakers. From time to time, the rocks on the surface of the extreme abyss were filled with core formation cultivators. In the past 10 years, the number of core formation cultivators increased day by day. Although many of them were outside, and many of them were in closed-door meditation, there were still nearly 20 people who often came to listen to the talks. In front of these core formation cultivators, most of whom were older than her, Mo Tiange was a bit restrained at first, but later, after talking a lot, she relaxed. Regardless of her age, her cultivation level was solid, so in front of these people, she was a senior. As for these core formation cultivators, because she went to Yunzhong after advancing to the core formation realm and only returned after advancing to the nascent soul realm, they weren't familiar with her. In the past few decades, Xianqing School had already shaped her into the most talented cultivator in the history of the celestial pole. Every disciple in the school admired her, and they were no exception. Cultivating, teaching, preaching, time passed like flowing water. 5 years later, Xiaohua advanced and took a human form as expected. Xiaohua was only about 200 years old. After taking a human form, it looked like a 14 or 15-year-old girl, lively and quick-witted, completely different from Xiaofeng's amorous style. Feifei was already numb to Xiaohua's transformation, but when Mo Tiange laughed at it, it just sneered, turned around, locked itself in the hut, and went to work hard. Feifei's seclusion lasted 10 years. Feifei was the first spiritual beast to obtain the divine beast's breath. If it had a good foundation, and the Feifeis were a clan that focused on divine comprehension, Xiaofan and Xiaohua wouldn't have advanced to the 8th rank before them. After 10 years of meditation, it finally absorbed the white tiger's breath completely and rushed to the 8th rank in one fell swoop. Feifei's 8th rank heavenly tribulation was still helped by Lord Daoist Jinghe and Lord Daoist Huayan. With Xiaofan and Xiaohua in front, the two of them and the low-level cultivators below them were already used to fighting against heavenly tribulations. Except for those who entered the school within 10 years, all the disciples closed their immortals' caves, opened the defensive formation, and waited for the heavenly tribulation to pass. This time, Feifei's heavenly tribulation also had 10 tribulations, and its power was a bit stronger than that of the other 3 divine beasts. Mo Tiange thought it might be, because Feifei had the bloodline of a divine beast. After Feifei's heavenly tribulation, news came from Kuanzhong City that the Immortal Alliance intended to launch a strong attack on the beast cultivators and beat them back in one fell swoop. This would give the Celestial Pole several decades or even hundreds of years of peace so that they could recuperate and concentrate on dealing with the Devil Path. For this reason, the Immortal Alliance summoned all the nascent soul cultivators to Kuanzhong City. Lord Daoist Jinyang ordered that the sect would be handed over to Mo Tiange, Qinshi, and Lord Daoist Lingxi, while Jinghe and Huayan would go to Kuanzhong City. After receiving the order, Lord Daoist Jinghe and Lord Daoist Huayan gave a few simple instructions and set foot on the transporting formation to Kuanzhong City. The 3 islands of Shaoyang. In the hearts of the cultivators in Yunzhong and Yuanzhou, Shaoyang was the most dangerous place they didn't want to go to. Compared with the orderly order in Yunzhong and Yuanzhou, Shaoyang was a place without laws and rules at all. Murder and robbery were commonplace here. There was only one rule in living here: the winner takes all. Originally, Yunzhong was in the middle, Yuanzhou was in the east, and Shaoyang was in the west, forming a line. After the world changed, Yunzhong moved to the north, Yuanzhou moved to the southwest, and Shaoyang moved to the east. Now, Shaoyang was in the middle, Yunzhong was in the north, and Yuanzhou was in the south. Now, Shaoyang and Yunzhong were separated by the original South Sea of the Celestial Pole. There were no islands, and the sea area was dangerous, which was equivalent to cutting off contact. On the other hand, Yuanzhou, because of its numerous islands and relatively calm sea area, became the favorite target of plunder for cultivators in Shaoyang. From time to time, they would invite their friends and relatives to go to Yuanzhou for a few days to rob, kill, and seize treasures. They would have fun, and didn't even need to pay for the trip. This led to 2 consequences. First, the living standards of the cultivators in Shaoyang rose sharply. Second, the fighting standards of the cultivators in Yuanzhou rose sharply. Aside from the disharmonious process, the result alone seemed to be everyone was happy, and it could be said that everyone got something. Nie Wuxiang lived a very comfortable life here. Everyone in Shaoyang was a desperado, and most of them were devil cultivators. Whoever had the bigger fist was the boss, which really suited her very well. On the first day she arrived in Shaoyang, the few nascent soul cultivators in Shaoyang all thought she came to snatch their territory, so they made unwise decisions one after another. Based on the principle of killing whoever stood in her way, Nie Wuxiang quickly beat down most of them and became the overlord of Shaoyang on the island. Chapter 655. Nie Wuxiang opened her eyes and clenched her fists, feeling very satisfied. After settling for so many years, she finally broke through and entered the middle stage. In fact, she formed her devil nascent earlier than Mo Tiange. Back then, Mei Feng created Primordial Devil and swallowed a lot of core formation cultivators. She originally planned to use it on herself to directly advance from the early stage to the late stage of the nascent soul realm, but in the end, she took advantage of it. With that Primordial Devil aura, she became a devil cultivator and only needed to use that Primordial Devil aura to form her nascent soul. But later, because the Primordial Devil art she stole wasn't complete, she stayed in the early stage, which slowed down her cultivation speed. After obtaining the Primordial Devil Steel, her cultivation progressed by leaps and bounds. Devil cultivators rarely encountered bottlenecks, so she finally rushed into the middle stage in one go. Fortunately, she wasn't too slow. Qin Shi and Jing Xingji were cultivators of the same generation, but their ages were 100 years apart. Mo Tiange was a bit younger than her, so it was embarrassing for her to be behind her. Nie Wuxiang stretched her muscles and felt comfortable all over, so she stood up and walked out of the cave. Shaoyang was indeed the most dangerous place in the eyes of Yunzhong cultivators. Here, the barren hills and unruly rivers, the spirit veins, and the devil's domain were extremely small. When Nie Wuxiang came here for the first time, she simply wanted to shed tears of sympathy for the cultivators of Shaoyang. In Yunzhong, core formation cultivators didn't even want the one she occupied now, but in Shaoyang, it became an immortal's cave that nascent soul cultivators fought over. There weren't many nascent soul cultivators in Shaoyang. Who was willing to suffer in Shaoyang after cultivating to the nascent soul realm? Those who stayed in Shaoyang had no other choice. Some had too many enemies, some offended people they shouldn't offend, and some got into trouble because of their wealth. In addition, there were only so many resources in Shaoyang. After fighting and killing, there were only 5 nascent soul cultivators left. 2 of them were beaten to the ground by her, 2 were scared away by her, and the last one was very smart and didn't get involved, so this cave naturally belonged to her. Devil Monarch. Upon seeing her, a bearded core formation devil cultivator with a weathered face hurriedly came forward and respectfully saluted her. Devil Monarch, if you have something to say, just tell me to do it. Nie Wuxiang nodded very calmly, then took out a jade slip. Prepare these things.
Yes.
The fiendish cultivator took the jade slip and scanned it with his divine sense. He was stunned. Fiend Lord, this.
What?
Is there a problem? Nie Wuxiang indifferently glanced at him. The fiendish cultivator shuddered. He couldn't help but think back to several decades ago, when she beat up the previous master of the Immortal's Cave to the point where his nascent soul was almost shattered. He repeatedly said, "No, no." He skimmed through the jade slip once more. This subordinate will immediately gather people and head to Yuan province.
Wait.
Nie Wuxiang took out a spirit stone pouch. Don't alarm others. Just go to Yuanzhou and buy it by yourself. The fiendish cultivator stared at her with his mouth agape. Buy it? It was the first time Shaoyang, a nascent soul cultivator, wanted to buy something. What? Another problem? Nie Wuxiang slowly clenched her fists. I wouldn't dare. The fiendish cultivator took the bag of spirit stones. I'll do it immediately. I guarantee that no one will find out. Nie Wuxiang nodded in satisfaction. Go. Yes. The fiendish cultivator didn't dare to say another word and eagerly left. After watching him leave, Nie Wuxiang stood for a while before returning to her cave and sitting down cross-legged again. The middle stage of nascent soul plus those things were more or less enough. She didn't dare to wait until the late stage of nascent soul. By that time, his injuries would most likely have already recovered, right? She knew his strength too well. If she let him recover his cultivation level, it would be very difficult for her to have another chance. At that time, she could only wait for his lifespan to run out and she would pass away. If that was the case, this knot in her heart would never be untied. Nie Wuxiang once again clenched her fists, her gaze firm and resolute. She must personally knock him down and give herself a new life. In less than a month, the core formation devil cultivator returned from Yuan province. He respectfully presented the Qianquan bag and the remaining spirit stones. Devil Monarch, this subordinate didn't fail you. Nie Wuxiang took the Qianquan bag, checked it one by one, then nodded. Good. You did well. You can be considered conscientious for several decades. Since you're so obedient, I can promise you one request. The core formation devil cultivator was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. Thank you, Devil Monarch. Nie Wuxiang said faintly, before I leave Small Sun City, I'll keep my promise. You can think it over before coming back. The devil cultivator was stunned. Devil Monarch, you want to leave Small Sun City? Nie Wuxiang slightly raised her eyes and looked at the void, not answering for a long time. Just when the devil cultivator thought she wouldn't answer, she said, You'd better tell me earlier, lest I can't fulfill my promise in time. Devil Monarch, say it. The Devil Cultivator said. Devil Monarch should know that this subordinate was seriously injured many years ago, so my Devil Core was damaged, and it's hard for my cultivation level to advance. I know. Without waiting for him to finish, Nia Wushang said, I can help you repair your Devil Core, but that's all. The Devil Cultivator was overjoyed. Thank you, Devil Monarch.
Thank you.
Nia Wushang looked at him thanking her profusely and sighed inwardly. This subordinate voluntarily came to her after she occupied the island. She took a fancy to him because his Devil Core was damaged and he was simple-minded. The reason why his Devil Core was damaged and he was stranded in Small Sun City was because of his sad past. This made Nia Wushang inevitably think that if she hadn't acted quickly, the best result would be the same as him, right? Master, master. Her eyes were cold and her fists were clenched. After a long time, she slowly exhaled. She would definitely get revenge for more than 100 years of humiliation. Although the war between beast cultivators was in full swing, Xianqing School's major competition, which was held once every 50 years, was still held. According to Xianqing School's rules, the aura refining and foundation building realms would have a minor competition every 10 years, while the foundation building and core formation realms would have a major competition every 50 years. In the past few decades, Xianqing School had many talented foundation building and core formation cultivators. Almost half of the disciples were fighting outside, but there were still more than 300 foundation building disciples and more than 30 core formation cultivators in the school. The rewards for the major competition were very generous. From cultivation techniques, magic weapons, to spiritual pills and materials, there was everything. Furthermore, core formation cultivators aside, there was a high chance that foundation establishment cultivators would be taken in as disciples by core formation perfected beings or even nascent souls if they performed outstandingly in the competition. For most people, that was an irresistible temptation. At this moment, on the main peak of Mount Taikong, a huge fighting arena was built out of thin air with a profound formation technique. From the outside, the fighting arena looked like a transparent lotus platform floating in the air, but for the people inside, it was a vast and boundless world. On the fighting arena, life and death didn't matter. This didn't mean that dying on the fighting arena would be in vain. Rather, it meant that even if you died, you wouldn't die. This fighting arena wasn't an ordinary fighting arena. Those inside would be protected by a formation, and their real primordial spirit and physical body would be preserved. Even if their physical body and primordial spirit were destroyed during the competition, they would be restored to their original state once it was over. Under Elder Weiwu's order, the two foundation building disciples on the fighting arena began to fight. On the cloud platform surrounding the dueling arena, the core formation perfected masters watched and commented on their disciples. This was a rare opportunity to watch a real fight. Because of the characteristics of the fighting arena, it was different from the usual sparring. It could better display the strength of cultivators and make it easier to see their strengths and weaknesses. Watching the scene, Mo Tiange couldn't help but sigh. The strength of a big cultivation group was really beyond the reach of small cultivation groups. Even a medium-sized cultivation group like Yunwu Sect couldn't build this fighting arena even if they used all their resources, let alone those small cultivation groups with only a few core formation cultivators. When she wandered around Kunwu with second uncle, she saw many immortals assemblies held by cultivation groups, but they were all just ordinary fighting arenas reinforced with formations. Junior Martial Sister Qingwei, you've never participated in the major competition between cultivation groups, right? A gentle and refined voice rang in her ears. Mo Tiange turned around and saw Lord Daoist Lingxi on the other side. The old ones were all conscripted to Kunzhong City, so there were only the three of them in Xianqing School. Lord Daoist Lingxi just came out of closed-door meditation not long ago. Her cultivation level had improved greatly, so she was in a good mood and felt like spring breeze was blowing on her face all day long. Senior Martial Brother Lingxi, you must be joking. Junior Martial Sister never had a chance. Lord Taoist Lingxi smiled and said, "For disciples of nascent soul Lord Taoists like us, foundation-building cultivators generally don't participate in major and minor competitions. Only core formation cultivators participate. Junior Marshall's sister never had a chance, but you advanced too quickly. Senior Marshall brother Shoujing and I participated in 2 major competitions when we were in the core formation realm. During the first competition, Senior Marshall brother Shoujing was in closed-door meditation, so we only had 1 chance to share the stage." "Oh." Mo Tiange was quite interested. "What was the result?" "Of course I lost." Lord Taoist Lingxi smiled. Although he said he lost, he didn't care about it at all. Qin Shi smiled and said, "That's because you just advanced to the core formation realm and your cultivation level has just stabilized. We're about the same age." "What do you mean I just advanced to the core formation realm? I lost to you." Lord Taoist Lingxi shook his head and said jokingly, "Senior Marshall brother Shoujing, you're still so modest after winning. What do you think we, the losers, do?" Qin Shi waved his hand and looked at Mo Tiange. "The real winner is over there. We're all losers in front of her." Lord Taoist Lingxi was stunned for a moment before he burst into laughter. Then he said, "Senior Marshall brother Shoujing, I'm confident in other things, but I really can't compare to you in this aspect." Qin Shi also laughed without the slightest embarrassment. Speaking of this, in recent decades, outstanding disciples have appeared frequently in the sect. This year's major competition is quite worth watching. Lord Taoist Lingxi's gaze shifted to the fighting stage. His eyes flickered. "Oh, this disciple is not bad." Mo Tiange and Qin Shi also turned around and were also attracted by the fighting stage. The 2 disciples on the fighting stage were both in the middle stage of the foundation-building realm. One of them had a lot of treasures and spells, so he was probably an elite disciple under a core formation cultivator. The other disciple was much worse off. He only had a high-grade magic tool, and the cultivation technique he practiced was also relatively ordinary. Of these 2 disciples, the former was suppressed and beaten, which was really strange. After watching for a while, Qin Shi suddenly said, "This person is really a promising talent." Lord Taoist Lingxi nodded. "Yes. Whether it's magic tools or cultivation techniques, he's far inferior, but he relies on a solid foundation and flexible adaptability to the situation. What's more rare is that his fighting spirit is high and he's very tenacious. In time, he'll definitely have some achievements." Qin Shi looked at him. "Junior Marshall brother Lingxi, you're very interested in this disciple." Lord Taoist Lingxi smiled and summoned a disciple. "What's his name?" The disciple flipped through the name list and reported, "Grandmaster, this Junior Marshall brother is called Mo Xiaoliang, a disciple of Sweet Dew Peak. He's 45 years old and built his foundation when he was 25. "Oh?" Lord Taoist Lingxi narrowed his eyes. "It's rare for him to enter the middle stage in less than 20 years. Does he have a master?" This question showed that he was interested in him. The disciple was envious and jealous, so he answered, "No master." A trace of doubt flashed in Lord Taoist Lingxi's eyes. His aptitude is not bad, his willpower is even better, and his cultivation level is advancing fast. Why doesn't he have a master? This disciple doesn't know. Lord Taoist Lingxi naturally didn't expect this foundation-building disciple to answer. Not far away, Dao-Seeking Palace's skill-imparting elder heard this, and stood up to answer. "Marshal uncle, this Mo Xiaoliang doesn't have a master because his temper is too violent. Back when he was in the aura refining realm, he accidentally killed a fellow disciple, so why?" Lord Taoist Lingxi's expression turned serious. Killing a fellow disciple was the sex prohibition. No matter how outstanding your aptitude was, if you violated this prohibition, you would be expelled from the sect, not to mention being accepted as a disciple by a nascent soul Dao Lord. It was a disciple who used his family's power to deliberately bully others. Mo Xiaoliang was too impulsive and used too much force. "I see." Lord Taoist Lingxi nodded. "In that case, he can't be blamed." "Yes." Seeing that Lord Daoist Lingxi was quite interested in this disciple, skill-imparting elder echoed, "The sect forbids killing fellow disciples. If he was in the wrong, he would have been expelled from the sect long ago. But his temper is really a headache." Back then, several junior martial brothers were also interested in him, but in the end, they thought it was better to temper his temper. Chapter 656. Junior martial brother Emo, please come with me. When Emo Xiaoliang stepped down from the stage, a steward flew down from the cloud platform and said in an official tone. All the disciples were filled with envy and jealousy when they saw this scene. All of them understood what this meant. Someone must have taken a fancy to Emo Xiaoliang's performance and intended to take him as a disciple, so they summoned him for questioning. As long as he seized this opportunity and performed well, he would be able to ascend to the heavens in a single bound and become the disciple of a high-level cultivator. Emo Xiaoliang was expressionless. He followed the steward and flew to the cloud platform. Greetings to the 3 grandmasters and martial uncles. He was a little surprised to be led to the 3 nascent soul Lord Taoists, but he didn't panic. He didn't lack etiquette, but he didn't show too much respect on his face. Lord Daoist Lingxi didn't mind at all and still said with a smile, "Emo Xiaoliang, I have a question to ask you after watching your fight." Emo Xiaoliang bowed. "Yes, please ask, Grandmaster." Lord Daoist Lingxi said, "Which do you think is more important, temperament or aptitude?" Emo Xiaoliang was stunned. He thought for a while and answered, "Temperament."
Oh.
Lord Daoist Lingxi was quite surprised. Many people thought that aptitude was more important, but most nascent soul Lord Taoists would think about it and say the two were equally important. She didn't expect Emo Xiaoliang to say temperament was more important.
Why?
Emo Xiaoliang answered, "There's no reason. The grandmasters in our sect may not have super strong aptitude, but they certainly have extraordinary temperament." Lord Daoist Lingxi looked at them and said with a smile, "Among the 8 nascent soul cultivators in our sect, 5 have single spiritual roots. As for the remaining 3, one of them has a spiritual root of the origin, which is better than a single spiritual root. How do you explain this?" Emo Xiaoliang said, "Grandmaster Shoujing has double spiritual roots, but he was the first genius cultivator to form his gold core in Xianqing School. Moreover, he formed his nascent soul at the age of 211. Grandmaster Lingxi, you have a single spiritual root, so you can't compare with Grandmaster Shoujing in terms of gold core or nascent soul. Grandmaster Huayan's aptitude is worse than Grandmaster Shoujing's, but he still reached the nascent soul realm. Grandmaster Zhifei of Morning Sun Peak has a single spiritual root, but he still hasn't formed his nascent soul realm." Dao Lord Lingxi laughed. "You really dare to say that?" Emo Xiaoliang continued, "Based on these 3 things, it's clear that those who reach the nascent soul realm don't necessarily have high aptitudes, but all of them have excellent temperaments." Dao Lord Rhinoceros smiled and said, "Those with talent but no temperament were all eliminated, right?" Emo Xiaoliang hesitated for a moment before nodding.
Yes.
"Then have you ever thought that those with no aptitude and temperament would have been eliminated even earlier?" Emo Xiaoliang hesitated even longer. Dao Lord Rhinoceros simply smiled at him. "Grandmaster is saying," Emo Xiaoliang said with some difficulty, "aptitude is actually more important than temperament." Dao Lord Lingxi shook his head. "I didn't say anything. You don't need me to answer this question." Emo Xiaoliang remained silent. Emo Xiaoliang. After a long silence, Dao Lord Rhinoceros suddenly asked, "Are you willing to take me as your master and become my disciple?" Although he knew the deacon called him up because someone was interested in him and might even accept him as a disciple, Emo Xiaoliang was still surprised to hear Dao Lord Rhinoceros ask him such a straightforward question. He didn't expect it to be a nascent soul grandmaster. He also didn't expect the other party to directly accept him as a disciple without testing him again and again. Seeing that he didn't answer for a long time, Dao Lord Rhinoceros raised her eyebrows.
What?
You don't want to? Emo Xiaoliang regained his composure. He suddenly lifted his robe and knelt down. Grandmaster Rhinoceros, please forgive me. Disciple once had a wish. Before I answer Grandmaster, I want to ask Grandmaster Qingwei a question first. Dao Lord Rhinoceros found it quite interesting and nodded. Okay. Mo Xiaoyang raised his head and stared at Mo Tiange. Something flashed in his eyes, like admiration and desire. He said, "May I ask if Grandmaster Qingwei still remembers Disciple?" The Mo Xiaoyang in front of him looked like he was in his early 20s. He had a regular face and a fierce expression at the tip of his eyebrows and the corner of his eyes, so he wasn't handsome. However, the fierceness he exuded was exactly the same as in Mo Xiaoyang's memory. Mo Tiange nodded calmly. I remember, but I didn't expect your surname to be Mo Xiaoyang said. That day, Disciple was saved by Grandmaster, so Disciple was able to escape. When I entered the sect, Disciple asked Martial Uncle you knew how I could become Grandmaster Qingwei's disciple. Martial Uncle replied that I could become the most powerful disciple in Xianqing School. All these years, Disciple has been working hard and never slacking off. However, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. All these years, not to mention nascent soul Lord Taoists, even core formation Taoists are unwilling to accept me as a disciple. Now that Grandmaster Rhinoceros wants to accept Disciple, Disciple knows this is a chance to change my fate. But before that, Disciple wants to ask Grandmaster, is Grandmaster willing to accept me as a disciple? On the cloud platform, all the cultivators who heard him looked at him with astonishment. Xianqing School had been established for so many years, but they had never heard of a nascent soul Lord Taoist asking a disciple whether or not he was willing to accept him as a disciple. This Mo Xiaoyang was really too bold and thought too highly of himself. Mo Tiange's eyes were also filled with astonishment. She cast a glance at Lord Taoist Rhinoceros, who had been smiling all along, and asked, "Do you know that senior martial brother Lingxi wants to accept you as a disciple not only because you're compatible with his temperament, but also because you're suitable to cultivate his cultivation technique? If you accept me as your master, I'll at most ask for a cultivation technique for you, but I can't give you pointers like he does." Disciple knows, Mo Xiaoyang said calmly. But this has been Disciple's wish for several decades. I have to ask before I'm willing to turn to someone else. Mo Tiange glanced at Lord Taoist Rhinoceros and said, I have no intention of accepting a disciple. Mo Xiaoyang exhaled, kowtowed to her, and turned to Lord Taoist Rhinoceros. Grandmaster Lingxi, disciple is willing. Lord Taoist Rhinoceros didn't answer immediately. Instead, he said with a smile, You asked her first, and then replied to me. Isn't this telling others that in your heart, becoming my disciple isn't the best choice? If that's the case, would I still be willing to accept you as my disciple? Mo Xiaoyang lowered his head and said, If Grandmaster Lingxi changes your mind, disciple has nothing to say. Even so, would you still ask her just now? Yes. Mo Xiaoyang didn't hesitate at all. Lord Taoist Rhinoceros nodded.
Go.
Someone will notify you later. Disciple will take her leave. Mo Xiaoyang kowtowed again and retreated without any rudeness. After a while, Mo Tiange asked, Does senior martial brother Lingxi want to accept a disciple or not? Lord Taoist Rhinoceros answered, Junior martial sister Qingwei really doesn't want to accept a disciple, or does she want me to accept her? The two of them looked at each other and laughed together. Lord Taoist Rhinoceros said, He said without hesitation that temperament is important, which means temperament is more important in his heart. His aptitude isn't bad, so it can be considered a pass. Temperament is only good for him. Moreover, what I value more is that he can face his heart directly. Even under the pressure of the three of us, he can still face his heart. Relatively speaking, having a violent temper isn't a big disadvantage. Nascent soul cultivators like them all knew that the first important point of the Great Tao was to face one's heart directly. Mo Xiaoyang had already achieved this point, which meant that his chances of stepping on the Great Tao in the future were much higher than those of ordinary people. Also, Qin Shi, who had been watching from the side, said, He's not inflexible. He values ideals, but he won't die with them.
Yes.
Lord Taoist Rhinoceros said with a smile, "A firm belief is necessary, but it can't be the same. If you don't know how to size up the situation, you'll also be eliminated by reality." In short, congratulations to Senior Marshal Brother Lingxi for accepting a good disciple. Mo Tiange cupped her hands. Congratulations. On the first day of the competition, Lord Taoist Rhinoceros accepted a disciple. This news inspired many disciples and made them even more enthusiastic about the competition. 5 days later, all the foundation-building disciples finished competing. There were about a dozen disciples who successfully worshipped high-level cultivators as their masters. Unfortunately, the others were all core formation masters. Mo Xiaoliang was the only one who worshipped a nascent soul Lord Taoist. The disciples were disappointed, but also envious. They were thinking about the next competition and worried that they would be too old to enter the eyes of a nascent soul grandmaster. Next was the competition for core formation cultivators. Under normal circumstances, the competition was the only opportunity to watch core formation cultivators fight. Therefore, not only were there not many people on the main peak, but there were also more. There were about 20 core formation cultivators participating in the competition this time. The fights between core formation cultivators were much more detailed, so there would probably be more than a dozen fights until the final round. The intensity of fights between core formation cultivators was also much higher, so there were at most 3 fights per day. In total, it would take 5 or 6 days for the competition to end. When the competition was completely over, it would be the opening day of the 10,000 Laws of Nature formation. All foundation-building cultivators who entered the sect within 50 years had to enter the 10,000 Laws of Nature formation. No matter how she thought about it, she still had to be busy for more than 10 days. Mo Tiange simply stopped cultivating and prepared to spend this period of time leisurely. When the core formation cultivators competition began, Mo Tiange was surprised to find that Lord Taoist Miaoi's disciple, Wu Feishuang, had already formed her gold core. During the trip to the Eastern Sea, she lost one of her arms and was seriously injured. Kuang Zhu said it would take her about 10 to 20 years to fully recover. Including the time it took to form her gold core, it had only been 30 years since then. Out of curiosity, she asked and found out the reason was because of her. Back then, she took out a lot of spiritual plants and spiritual pills to shorten the time Wu Feishuang needed to recuperate. Later, she obtained enough medicinal pills and concentrated on cultivating. In 20 years, she broke through and formed her gold core in one fell swoop. Mo Tiange sighed and said, "Even so, she must have accumulated a lot to be able to enter the core formation realm so smoothly." "Qin," she said faintly, "I have to thank Shifei. If it weren't for him, it wouldn't have been so easy to sever the entanglement." Thinking about Bai Yanfei, who was still struggling in the core formation realm, Mo Tiange couldn't help but sigh. What was even more shocking was that Wu Feishuang's opponent was actually Jiang Min. Mo Tiange watched as the two of them met in the fighting arena. Both of them looked calm, just like they did in the past. They politely called each other senior and junior martial sisters, and their attitudes were friendly, but not deliberately intimate. Presumably, they'd already let go of Bai Yanfei. Mo Tiange couldn't help but sigh for Bai Yanfei again. If he still couldn't let go, he would lose to them. Chapter 657. The wind from the north swept over with yellow sand, and the whole mountain was covered in sand and rustling. Langtu Mountain was like this all year round. Only a few rare rainy days could prevent the yellow sand from filling the sky. No one knew when it started, but the yellow sand here always carried a strange black aura. Once contaminated, mortals would immediately die, and even cultivators would be corroded. Many cultivators in the Celestial Pole knew that Langtu Mountain was one of the 3 most dangerous places in the extreme west, but almost no one knew that it was the abode of the #1 cultivator in the Celestial Pole. In the sky full of sand, a black-clothed man leisurely stepped onto Langtu Mountain, ignoring the yellow sand as he walked step by step toward the belly of the mountain. There was a place in the belly of the mountain that was buried by yellow sand, but nascent soul cultivators could feel different auras coming from there. The black-clothed man stopped, made a complicated hand seal, and pushed gently. A deep cave suddenly appeared, and he walked in. Who? A gloomy shout came from the dark abode. The black-clothed man stopped and sighed softly. Master, you're so confident in yourself that you didn't even change the method to open the door. Her clear and pleasant voice was completely different from the hoarseness of the past. Master Song Feng paused for a moment, and devil aura suddenly surged in the gloomy cave. It's you. His voice was tense, and every word was full of anger. It's me. Nia Wushang gently waved her sleeves, and the devil aura around her became calm. Sensing her aura, Master Song Feng was shocked and angry. You're actually in the middle stage of nascent soul. How long has it been? Where did you get the technique? He unconsciously touched his Qingquan bag, and the prime devil steel was still there. The prime devil technique in your hands isn't the only one in the world, Nia Wushang said with a smile. Master has been awe-inspiring for so long that he seems to have forgotten to be vigilant. Master Song Feng naturally didn't forget that several great cultivators besieged him in Sandstorm City several decades ago. He was even forced to give up his body and return to Lang Tu Mountain, always vigilant. But he never expected this bitch to have the guts to come back. Do you think you can challenge me just because you're in the middle stage of nascent soul? I don't dare, Nia Wushang said faintly. That's why I came back before you recovered. You're smart. Master Song Feng sneered. But you're too confident. Really? Nia Wushang didn't care about his attitude at all. She suddenly asked, Master, do you want to know where I got my primordial devil great technique? Master Song Feng didn't answer right away. After a while, a cold snort came from the devil aura. What are you planning? Nia Wushang showed a faint smile. I just want to tell you how narrow-minded you are. As soon as she finished speaking, the devil aura inside the cave seemed to sense Master Song Feng's mood and fluctuated, but the devil aura couldn't get close to her. Master Song Feng seemed to have noticed it, so the devil aura carried a bit of pressure and slowly pressed toward Nia Wushang. It's useless. Nia Wushang always had a smile on her face. She slightly raised her head, carrying with her a contempt that she would never have in the past. Master, do you still not understand? I'm no longer the Nia Wushang who you can bully, who doesn't dare to say a word, do a thing, or show an expression. The gloomy cave and the pitch-black devil aura made her skin look fairer and her face as white as snow. Master Song Feng was in a trance for a moment. He seemed to see traces of another person on her face, and he clenched his teeth. After a long time, he asked solemnly, Where did you get your primordial devil great technique? Nia Wushang chuckled. You finally asked. She paused and said, Then have you ever thought that since there's a white tiger's sacrificial temple, is there an azure dragon, vermilion bird, and black tortoise? Master Song Feng was stunned. It wasn't that he didn't think about this back then, but he was already very lucky to find a sacrificial temple. How could he find another one? Could it be that this B***TCH really had such a lucky chance? Thinking of this possibility, Master Song Feng felt very upset. In this world, you're not the only one who practices the primordial devil great technique. As far as I know, there are 2 other people besides us. One was Yang Qingji, and the other was that unlucky Mei Feng, the Lord of Descending Star City, who was killed. Master, you're indeed a rare cultivation genius in the world, but unfortunately, you went the wrong way at the beginning. When you comprehended the real primordial devil great technique, it was already too late. Nia Wushang's tone was gentle and calm, and she spoke at a moderate speed as if she didn't care about him at all. This made Master Song Feng very unhappy. When did the girl who always trembled with fear beside him become like this? She became someone who dared to challenge him, and became someone he couldn't control. Are you trying to say you went the right way? Nia Wushang raised the corner of her mouth. I don't know if I went the right way, but you definitely went the wrong way. She raised her eyebrows. Do you think it's very unfair? We both practice the primordial devil great technique, but you still can't have a complete body after giving up your corporeal body and seizing it again, while I'm not affected at all. Humph. Master Song Feng's heart stirred slightly, but he just snorted coldly. Nie Wuxiang ignored him and continued. First, you took a detour before. Second, maybe you didn't notice that the primordial devil great technique doesn't only cultivate primordial devil aura. The gloomy cave was silent. No one knew what Master Songfeng was feeling at the moment. Nie Wuxiang's voice rang quietly. Master, you've entered the nascent soul realm for so many years, but why haven't you broken through? Is it because your cultivation level isn't high enough, or you can't break through at all? Master Songfeng, who was in the dark, was greatly shocked. He shouted, What did you say? With a chuckle, Nie Wuxiang said, I didn't understand before, but after practicing the primordial devil great technique and slowly thinking about the past, I realized. Her gaze shifted to the figure in the dark. Master, is it because your corporeal body can't bear the burden after you entered the nascent soul realm, so you cultivated primordial devil aura cloud and tried to replace your corporeal body? Her voice was very calm, but it made Master Songfeng feel an aggressive sharpness, and the content of her words frightened him even more. When did the girl who was by his side, carefully seeking a slim chance of survival, become like this? It seems I guessed right. After waiting for a long time for no answer, Nie Wuxiang smiled. You comprehended the wrong technique at the beginning, giving the dead aura a chance to corrode your corporeal body. If you made a prompt decision to seize a body to be reborn, you could have cut off all hidden dangers. Unfortunately, you didn't know at that time. By the time you realized something was wrong, it was already too late. The dead aura even corroded your primordial spirit. A smile hung on Nie Wuxiang's face, but her gaze became sharper and sharper. So, even if you seized a body, you're still a skeleton. As soon as he finished speaking, the devil chi suddenly spread out, forcing away the original aura, revealing a figure sitting cross-legged on a stone platform. This figure was so thin that he could barely hang on to his clothes. When he raised his face, there was a mixture of blood-red rotten flesh and white bones, creating a nauseating scene. Master, long time no see, Nie Wuxiang said softly. Humph. Primordial devil aura surged again, attaching to the skeleton. Before long, it once again turned into a black cloud, looking exactly the same as Master Songfeng's usual appearance. Right after that, a powerful aura spread out and pressed down on Nie Wuxiang. Nie Wuxiang's eyes were cold. She made a hand seal with both hands and mobilized the devil aura to resist Master Songfeng's spiritual pressure. You're really her daughter, Master Songfeng said hoarsely. I underestimated you. Nie Wuxiang's heart stirred and she slowly asked, Master, it's been so many years. Have you ever thought about my mother? The primordial devil aura in the cave fluctuated imperceptibly. Nie Wuxiang continued, When you beat and tortured me, were you thinking about my mother? Shut up, Master Songfeng shouted in a low voice. If you want to die faster, continue talking. Nie Wuxiang smiled. Do I look a bit like my mother? That's why every time you tortured me, you called me a bitch. Unfortunately, you won't be able to scold my mother. Do you regret killing her so decisively? The devil aura surged more violently, and Master Songfeng's voice rang out in a low voice. What do I regret? That bitch received her retribution long ago. She had an affair behind my back, but unfortunately, that man didn't take responsibility at all. How do you think I found you and your mother? That man told me himself. Nie Wuxiang's gaze changed, and her smile disappeared. But don't worry, I've already killed him. People like him deserve to die. Ha 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 ha. Master Songfeng burst into laughter. The sound of the skeleton and the gloomy tone made it sound like an evil ghost crawling out of hell, making people's hair stand on end. Nie Wuxiang suddenly curled her lips into a smile, obviously imitating Jing Xingji's actions. She said mockingly, Then I really have to thank you. This kind of man indeed deserves to die. If he's still alive, I'll take his life with my own hands. Her gaze fell on Master Songfeng again. Master, why do you have to do this? With your current appearance, you're neither a human nor a ghost. You can't break through to the late nascent soul realm and advance to the deification realm so that your primordial spirit can unite with your body and get rid of the death aura. You also can't kill your enemies as you please, so why are you still alive? Your enemies are getting stronger, but you're slowly losing your vitality. Even if I didn't come back, your lifespan would have come to an end in a few hundred years. You'll have no hope in this life.
What?
You want to attack me with this? Master Songfeng was unmoved. Bitch, you're still too inexperienced. I'm just stating a fact. Nia Wushang put on a pair of boxing gloves and said slowly, "You're like the sun setting in the western mountains, about to turn into a tree. Accept your fate." Right after she said that, primordial devil aura gathered in her fists and punched out. The primordial devil aura in the cave surged violently like waves, making it hard to tell who it belonged to. Master Songfeng, who had already turned into a black cloud again, snorted coldly and said, "Naive." On the black cloud, Master Songfeng raised a small flag. "You rashly ran into someone else's cave and still want to kill them?" He waved the small flag, but there was no movement at all. Master Songfeng was startled and stared at the small flag in his hand. This was a formation flag without a doubt, and it didn't lose its effect, so why? You're right. Since I dare to come in, how could I not be confident? As Nia Wushang spoke, several magic crystals soaked in death aura flashed in the eye of the formation. Chapter 658. Suddenly, a black demonic cloud burst forth from Lang Tu Mountain. Its might was magnificent, and its momentum was powerful. Not only did it cover the entirety of Lang Tu Mountain, it even crossed the southern end of the Western Mountain Range and extended all the way to the Kunwu Mountain Range. Inside the Black Devil aura, two people could be vaguely seen confronting each other. One was dressed in black and looked somewhat petite, while the other was hidden in the black clouds, so their appearances couldn't be seen clearly. Master. Nia Wushang stared fixedly at the person in the black clouds. Admit defeat. Although I've just reached the middle stage, you haven't fully recovered from your serious injuries, and your body isn't compatible. You can't beat me. A cold snort came from the black clouds. Master Songfeng said gloomily, "Bitch, do you think I don't know? Even so, your strength is still inferior to mine. You're just using words to provoke me. That's all." As soon as he finished speaking, the black clouds suddenly swelled up. A destructive aura emerged from the originally gloomy darkness, transforming into many terrifying devils that tore at Nia Wushang. Nia Wushang didn't move, but a ribbon burning with black flames appeared in front of her and went to meet those devils. Upon seeing this, Master Songfeng's black clouds suddenly swayed. "Bitch." A voice came from the black clouds. "I've raised you for so many years in vain. If you hadn't stolen my treasure, how could I have fallen into this situation?" The treasure Nia Wushang used to defend herself was precisely from Master Songfeng. She clenched her teeth behind the ribbon, resisting the invasion of the devils. She sneered and said, "Could it be that you still want to settle accounts with me? Such a ridiculous thing doesn't seem like something you'd do, Master." He didn't want to talk to her about the kindness of sparing her life and raising her to adulthood. Life wasn't a clear account of income and expenditure. After adding and subtracting, the kindness and enmity could be offset. She only knew that her mother died in his hands, and her life was also ruined in his hands. Such enmity was engraved in her bones day and night. Master Songfeng didn't say anything. In a flash, 3 black lines flew out from the devil clouds and entangled Nia Wushang. A huge black flower suddenly bloomed between Nia Wushang's hands. The petals unfolded and surrounded her whole body. The 3 black lines hit the flower petals and stopped. The 2 sides began to wrestle. Right now, Nia Wushang was under unimaginable pressure. Those 3 black threads were Master Songfeng's secret technique, which took him several hundred years to nurture. Each thread carried the power of primordial devil that could shake one's primordial spirit. Every time he used it, he would consume his own cultivation, so Master Songfeng wouldn't use it easily. But today, not only did he use this technique, but he even used all 3 techniques at the same time. It could be seen that he hated Nia Wushang to the bone. Under the black lines, the The flower petals on Nie Wuxiang's body became fainter and fainter. Gradually, her silhouette was revealed. The moment the petals dissipated and the black thread was about to penetrate her body, Nie Wuxiang suddenly disappeared. At the same time, an earth-shattering punch smashed onto Master Songfeng's body from the sky. Kacha! The sound of bones being hit rang out, and Master Songfeng fell down. Nie Wuxiang's silhouette appeared in the void, and she also followed after him. The two of them landed on Lang Tu Mountain one after the other. The devil cloud on Master Songfeng's body swayed, and a lot of his devil aura dissipated. *Tisichu. I should thank you for this, Master, Nie Wuxiang said. The phantom shapeshifting talisman was something you snatched from a nascent soul cultivator back then. Humph. Master Songfeng naturally knew. The Qianquan bag that was stolen from him back then contained all important spiritual treasures. As a result, not only did he have no treasures to use today, but he was also seriously injured by his own treasures. This little **tc. Looking at Nie Wuxiang's ice-cold face, Master Songfeng gritted his teeth so hard that they made cracking sounds. Just as she guessed, he was forced to give up his physical body in Sandstorm City, so he had no choice but to take over her body. Back then, he comprehended the wrong cultivation technique, so he didn't take over her body. One reason was that his primordial spirit had already been eroded by the dead aura, so taking over her body wouldn't solve the problem. The other reason was that he left himself some hope. He could only take over someone's body once in his lifetime. One day, he could expel all the dead aura and take over someone's body again. By then, he would have a brand new body and hope to advance to the deification realm.
But what about now?
If he hadn't discovered this **tch had returned to the Celestial Pole, how could he have gone to Sandstorm City? How could he have been besieged by those old guys? How could he have given up his physical body? How could he have been forced to take over someone's body? How could he have lost all hope of advancing to the deification realm? It was all because of this **t. I really regret that I didn't kill you back then, Master Songfeng said word by word. Nie Wuxiang laughed. Yeah, if you had killed me back then, how could there have been so many troubles? Unfortunately, it's useless even if you regret it. A devil cloud rose from her hand. Compared to Master Songfeng, Nie Wuxiang's devil cloud wasn't as strong, but it was also a lot cleaner. It was just pure primordial devil aura. This made Master Songfeng even more resentful. All of this originally belonged to him. After he lost control of his shout, his devil aura surged up violently like ocean waves. Once Nie Wuxiang saw this scene, she immediately knew that Master Songfeng had been stimulated to the point of madness by her. He originally didn't cultivate his mental state, and the wrong primordial devil great technique distorted his mind, cutting off his hope of advancing to the deification realm. Coupled with Nie Wuxiang's repeated blows, he finally fell into a demonic barrier. I'll kill you. A gloomy voice carrying a murderous aura rolled up the devil aura and yellow sand, attacking Nie Wuxiang all at once. Nie Wuxiang wasn't stingy at all. Spirit treasures appeared in her hands one after another to resist Master Songfeng's attack. The devil aura fluttered her black clothes, and the yellow sand covered the sky and covered the earth, but she didn't dare to relax in the slightest. Empress Origin was Empress Origin after all. Although she deliberately provoked and looked down on her master with words, she knew in her heart that even if her master was seriously injured and his body wasn't compatible with hers due to the failure of possession, she still couldn't resist him head-on. This was the #1 cultivator in the Celestial Pole. She knew this better than anyone else. Therefore, she could only drag it out. As long as she dragged it out, the final winner would be her. In the primordial devil aura cloud, yellow sand rustled, and rocks rolled down. Lang Tu Mountain almost collapsed. Nie Wuxiang clenched her teeth and held on. Magic treasures and spirit talismans were thrown out one by one to meet Master Songfeng's devil cloud, but they exploded one after another. Every time, she had an illusion that she couldn't hold on any longer, but when she thought of the humiliation she suffered for more than 100 years, she held on. The injuries on her body became more and more serious. She held the devil talisman she'd prepared a long time ago and indirectly replenished her devil aura. What did this count for? She was no longer the Nia Wushang who was bullied and humiliated but couldn't resist. She had friends, she could straighten her back, she could walk under the sun, and she wanted to have her own life. She wanted to personally erase this person who left a shadow in her heart and didn't even dare to breathe. She crushed the devil talisman countless times to replenish her devil aura and threw out countless spiritual treasures to resist the attacks. Finally, the spiritual aura pressure on her body slowly weakened. When the attack stopped, Nia Wushang's spirit was shaken. She put her hands together, and a huge devil crystal appeared in her hands, flashing with a strange aura of death. With a light flick, the devil crystal flew out. Although it was moving at a slow speed, it quickly appeared next to Master Songfeng. Master Songfeng sneered. "You want to fight back like this?" "In your dreams." The corners of Nia Wushang's mouth rose, revealing a sneer. Primordial devil gathered on her fist, and she silently punched out. Master Songfeng waved his hand, and the devil cloud wrapped around him, casually blocking it. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, Nia Wushang's fist penetrated the devil cloud and hit his body. Master Songfeng's eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible. How could this be? Watching him fall heavily, Nia Wushang said faintly, "Master, there are 3,000 daos, but not all of them are the same." The devil cloud dispersed, revealing a skeleton-like body with a terrifying face and 2 eyes staring at her. He still didn't believe her. "How could this be? You? Why did I lose?" Nia Wushang stared at him. "Do you really want to know?" Master Songfeng didn't close his eyes. Nia Wushang said, "When I set foot on Lang Tu Mountain, I started to arrange the devil crystal. Master, you probably don't know, but this devil crystal doesn't only have death aura. Everyone in Yunzhong is afraid of it because it has a strange effect. It absorbs people's spiritual essence." Seeing Master Songfeng lying on the ground desperately trying to stand up, Nia Wushang said with pity, "Master, your body is broken. Your primordial spirit is also entangled by death aura, and your own spiritual essence is insufficient. If it weren't for your profound cultivation level, the spiritual essence of your soul wouldn't have been able to support you to survive. I kept provoking you for 2 reasons. One was to make you underestimate the enemy, and the other was to stall for time, so the devil crystal could absorb your spiritual essence." It turns out, a strange expression appeared on Master Songfeng's badly mutilated face. He seemed to be smiling. "You are really her daughter." This was the second time he said this, but his tone was different. The first time, it was resentment, but this time, it was yearning. He said faintly, "That's fine. It's better to die in the hands of your daughter than to die silently, neither human nor ghost. In your next life, what's the use of your current appearance?" Nia Wushang looked at him, feeling for the first time that he was so weak. "Why didn't you tell my mother when she was alive?" Master Songfeng let out a strange laugh and said, "She betrayed me." "That's right. How could there be a woman who would love me with my current appearance? Was my mother that kind of person?" Nia Wushang interrupted him and said coldly, "Was the woman you loved deeply, the only woman in your life, that kind of person? Although I don't remember what happened before I was 3 years old, I don't believe it." Master Songfeng's eyes widened. His eyeballs, which almost popped out of his eye sockets, looked more and more disgusting and terrifying. "Master," Nia Wushang said softly, "you've always kept my mother's stone room in the cave. You didn't allow anyone to step in, didn't let anyone mention her, and even punish senior martial brother when he scolded her. Master, you've always loved my mother, haven't you?" He had no lips, and his teeth were exposed. It could be clearly seen that he was trembling. "Would the woman you loved so deeply leave you for such a reason? She's been with you for several thousand years. Would she leave you just like that?" Nia Wushang said coldly, "Instead of blaming her, you'd better blame yourself. Even in your next life, she wouldn't want to meet you like this again." Master Song Feng absent-mindedly looked at the yellow sand all over the sky. More than 1,000 years flashed past his eyes. Stepping on the path of immortality, becoming an ordinary disciple, having his sect destroyed, demonic mountain, fated chances, stone tablets, comprehending the wrong cultivation technique, body festering, Ing. Yes, when he met Ing, he was already in that state. She wouldn't leave him because of this. It was he who doubted her and pushed her away step by step. As it turned out, his life was a complete failure. He couldn't enter the deification realm, and he destroyed her with his own hands. Such a failed life. Then let it end like this. Chapter 659. When she received Nie Wushang's 10,000 miles sound-transmitting talisman, Mo Tiange was shocked because she only added 2 words, "Save me," and the location was actually Mount Lang 2. She once confirmed from Nie Wushang's wounds that Master Song Feng's secret cave was on Mount Lang Tuesday. "I have to go to Mount Lang 2. Mo Tiange said after putting down the talisman. "What's wrong?" She was surprised. Mount Lang 2 isn't an ordinary place. Wushang is asking for help. "She's on Mount Lang 2, Mo Tiange said succinctly, and stood up to prepare. She was startled, but he quickly understood the key point. "Wait. Let Master go with you." Mo Tiange paused and didn't try to be brave. "Okay." Mount Taikong and Xianqing School had established a transporting formation, so Lord Daoist Jinghe came back very quickly. After receiving the message, he returned to the sect in less than 4 hours. Upon hearing Mo Tiange's words, he said without any nonsense, "Let's go." With a late nascent soul cultivator accompanying her, Mo Tiange was very confident and entered Mount Lang 2 in less than 2 days. Mount Lang 2 was called Mount Lang 2 because it was shaped like a running wolf. The current Mount Lang 2 was unrecognizable. The place where the wolf's head used to be was bare, and the cliff where the tail used to be was also gone. Devil aura pervaded everywhere, and the connected Shiling mountain range was the first to suffer. Flowers, plants, and trees were all corroded by the devil aura mixed with dead aura. Lord Daoist Jinghe waved his sleeves, flinging away the yellow sand. He complained, "What's old man Song Feng doing? Is he afraid people won't know he's here?" Mo Tiange opened the lotus umbrella, isolating the surrounding devil aura. "It seems Wushang came back to take revenge." Lord Daoist Jinghe agreed. Mount Lang 2 clearly experienced a great battle. That girl. She must be very strong to be able to fight with old man Song Feng like this. Lord Daoist Jinghe sighed, frowned, and landed somewhere.
"Master?"
"Come." Lord Daoist Jinghe only said 1 word. Mo Tiange shut her mouth and soon found something was wrong. After landing on the yellow sand, Lord Daoist Jinghe flicked his sleeves. The sand was blown away, revealing 2 people, or rather, a person and a skeleton. "This is old man Song Feng?" Lord Daoist Jinghe stared at the skeleton in astonishment. Although its devil aura hadn't dissipated yet, it was obviously dead. Even its body had rotted away.
"Wushang."
Upon seeing the other person, Mo Tiange hastily rushed towards him. Nie Wushang's complexion was deathly pale. Her whole body was stiff as if she was dead, and her devil aura gathered, without condensing. "This girl is amazing." Lord Daoist Jinghe clicked his tongue in admiration. "Even I couldn't kill old man Song Feng, but she actually did it." Mo Tiange didn't have time to express her thoughts. Just as she was about to check Nie Wushang's pulse to examine the condition of her meridians, she suddenly remembered that Nie Wushang was a devil cultivator. She didn't know much about devil cultivators, so she had no way to use her spiritual aura to examine Nie Wushang's meridians. After being stunned for a while, she asked, "Master, what should we do about this?" Mo Tiange's request for help made Lord Daoist Jinghe extremely proud. "Master still needs to step in at a critical moment. Just you wait." As he spoke, his eyes flickered. After sweeping a glance at Nie Wushang's body, he retracted his technique and returned to his normal state. "She's fine. Although her injuries are a bit heavy, They didn't damage her nascent soul. She'll probably recover after resting for 30 to 50 years. 30 to 50 years? That's not counting external objects. If she has healing medicinal pills like devil cores, she'll probably recover in 10 to 20 years. Mo Tiange nodded. Then let's take her back. Lord Daoist Jinghe didn't answer immediately. He stared at her a few times before he finally said, "Girl, you really treat her differently. She's a devil cultivator and also old man Song Feng's disciple. You actually want to take her back to the sect to recuperate?" Mo Tiange said, "What else? Do you want to see her die here?" "Master, you don't think it's good?" Lord Daoist Jinghe thought for a while. "It's fine. That old man Jinyang won't dare to have any objections." After a few words, the master and disciple decided to take Nie Wushang back to Xianqing School. When they arrived at Xianqing School, Lord Daoist Jinghe didn't manage anything and went to Kunzhong City. Mo Tiange opened a stone room and stuffed Nie Wushang inside. She couldn't help devil cultivators recuperate.
How is it?
Qin Shi asked after she settled Nie Wushang and returned to the cultivation room. Mo Tiange said, "She killed Master Song Foam."
What?
Qin Shi thought he misheard. Mo Tiange repeated herself. "She killed Master Song Foam, so she's seriously injured." Qin Shi slowly came to his senses, but he still felt it was unbelievable. She really killed Master Song Foam? I sensed her cultivation just now. She's just in the middle stage. How did she kill him? I don't know about this. Let's ask her when she wakes up. The Mo Tiange thought for a while. After all, she followed Master Song Foam for so many years. Maybe she knows his unknown weakness? Qin Shi nodded and pointed at the table. Let's not talk about her for now.
Take a look at this.
Mo Tiange saw several things on the table. One was spirit-tempering water, the second was spirit-absorbing powder from the fallen god Abyss, and the third was the crystal they got from the storeroom of a great ancient sect next to the White Tiger Sacrificial Temple. Spirit-tempering water aside, they still hadn't figured out how to use the spirit-absorbing powder, let alone the crystal. They asked many people, but no one knew what it was. What? Qin Shi didn't say anything. He picked up the spirit-tempering water and dripped it on the crystal. There was already a small hole on the crystal. When the spirit-tempering water dripped on it, the hole slowly melted. When the cup of spirit-tempering water was finished, a hole was formed. It turns out it's just a shell. Mo Tiange looked at the top of the crystal, which had been melted by the spirit-tempering water. There was something like mist and water inside. It didn't have any spiritual aura, but it had an extremely mysterious aura. What's this? Qin Shi glanced at the piles of books and jade slips on the side. We were misled. We didn't even know what it was, so how could we find out what it was? After realizing this, I flipped through the ancient books and found it might be something else. What is it? Primal chaos aura, Qin Shi said, the beginning of heaven and earth. Mo Tiange didn't speak for a long time. She was dumbfounded. After a while, she found her voice. According to what you said, even in the immortal world, primal chaos aura is a top-grade treasure. How could it fall into the human world? Qin Shi shook his head. It's meaningless to investigate this. Take another look. As he spoke, he took several spirit stones and threw them into the crystal. Then, the gas melted at a speed visible to the naked eye and disappeared without a trace. Just like this, almost everything can be melted. Really? Mo Tiange's expression became serious. She took out several unimportant materials from her Qianquan ring and threw them into the crystal. Sure enough, all of them disappeared without a trace. After watching for a while, she suddenly said, "Spirit-sucking powder can absorb any spell, and this primal chaos aura can melt anything. What would happen if I put them together?" Qin Shi smiled. "That's exactly what I was thinking, but you came back before I could try it. Then let's try it quickly." Qin Shi nodded. Seeing that the crystal enveloping the primal chaos aura had somewhat healed, he took the spirit-tempering water and melted it again. Turns out this thing can grow automatically. Mo Tiange seemed to have understood something. No wonder it can be used to contain primal chaos aura. After melting the outer crystal, Qinshi carefully wrapped some primal chaos aura with his spiritual aura, making it float in the air. Then he sprinkled some spirit-sucking powder on it. The sizzling sound was endless, as if it was boiling and burning. The spirit-sucking powder and the primal chaos aura entangled and devoured each other as if they were fighting fiercely. The two of them stared at it without blinking. Before long, the sound gradually weakened. From the bottom to the top, the primal chaos aura became transparent like ice crystals. In the end, it became a crystal. After a long silence, Mo Tiange knocked the outer shell containing the primal chaos aura. So, this thing is made of spirit-sucking powder? Qinshi also touched it. He felt there was no difference no matter how he looked at it. When he tried to pour his spiritual aura into it, he suddenly thought of something. What's wrong? Mo Tiange noticed his strange expression and hurriedly asked. Qinshi didn't answer immediately. After spending some effort to take back his spiritual aura, he said, Spirit-sucking powder can absorb spiritual aura, and primal chaos aura can dissolve everything. The combination of these two is simply a sharp defensive weapon. Mo Tiange knocked the crystal and asked, You mean it can be made into a defensive magic weapon? Qinshi nodded.
Yes.
We originally thought spirit-sucking powder would be the best to make a defensive magic weapon. Now, with the addition of primal chaos aura, the effect is more than doubled. Mo Tiange thought for a while and said, I think it's good to make an offensive magic weapon. Oh. Mo Tiange touched an ordinary magic weapon and threw it into the primal chaos aura. Soon, the magic weapon disappeared without a trace. Qinshi looked at it for a while and finally understood. You mean, which magic weapon is so domineering? It's a pity not to attack. Qinshi stared at her for a long time and said, Tiange, you seem different from before. Different? Mo Tiange raised her eyebrows in surprise. What's different? It seems a bit sharper, he said. He smiled as he recalled. In the past, you were mostly on the defensive, cautious, and advanced step by step. But now, you also have an indomitable momentum. Mo Tiange thought about it carefully. She seemed to be right, so she said with a smile, Maybe I was influenced by you guys? Isn't this better? Qinshi answered with a smile. He looked at the crystal in his hand and thought for a while, then said, I really can't figure out how to refine this thing. How about I go to Kunzhong City? I can ask my senior martial brothers and sisters for advice and work together. In addition, I can also use the trade fair to communicate with other people. Maybe I can find other clues. Mo Tiange thought about it and agreed. With the transporting formation, it's enough for me and senior martial brother Lingxi to guard the sect. It shouldn't be a problem for you to go there for a month. Okay. Qinshi put away the crystal he condensed, took a tube of spirit-tempering water and a small amount of spirit-absorbing powder, and put them in his universe ring. I'll go now. So fast. Mo Tiange was surprised. Go early and come back early. Qinshi paused, then reminded her in a low voice, You have to pay more attention to Nie Wuxiang now. Her identity is sensitive, and it won't be good if it gets out. In addition, although your friendship with her isn't bad, she's a devil cultivator and also Master Songfeng's disciple. It's said that Master Songfeng's crazy and vengeful personality is also influenced by her cultivation technique. I'm really a bit worried. I know, Mo Tiange said rationally. I've long prepared for it. I arranged a lot of defensive formations in the stone room where she recuperated. Don't worry. Qinshi nodded and said no more. He put away the things, left the cave, and went to Kunzhong City. Chapter 660. 5 days later, Nie Wuxiang finally woke up. As soon as she woke up, she saw Mo Tiange sitting next to her. Tiange. Nie Wuxiang was relieved to see her. I'm finally alive. Mo Tiange saw that her face was still pale, so she asked with concern, Are you okay? How could you be so rash as to go to Langtu Mountain alone? No matter how seriously injured Master Songfeng is, He's still a late-stage, nascent soul cultivator. Even my master might not be able to kill him. You're alone. Nie Wuxiang smiled and said, I'm afraid I don't have time. He doesn't have much lifespan left, and his injuries are so serious. What if he dies before I act? Besides, I'm fine, aren't I? Fine? Mo Tiange snorted. You call this fine? Even with miraculous pills, it'll take at least 10 or 20 years for your injuries to heal. It's only 10 or 20 years. Nie Wuxiang was very calm. I'm not even 300 years old yet, so my lifespan is very long. What's the big deal if I only spend a few dozen years? You're really... Mo Tiange was speechless.
All right.
Seeing her unhappy expression, Nie Wuxiang smiled flatteringly and clasped her hands together. I'm still alive, so don't argue with me about this. By the way, don't you want to know how I defeated my master? She successfully aroused Mo Tiange's curiosity. Why? Nie Wuxiang said slowly, my master's cultivation level is profound and he's powerful. It's definitely impossible to defeat him head-on. However, he has a weakness. He once practiced the wrong cultivation technique. I remember you once told me that there was a person who looked very similar to my master after he cultivated. In fact, my master didn't cultivate primordial devil aura, but instead, he cultivated death aura. However, he was much smarter, so he discovered something was wrong and quickly comprehended the real cultivation technique. But his body was already damaged, and the death aura invaded his primordial spirit. So, with his current state, no matter how high his cultivation level was, he couldn't advance to the deification realm. The nascent soul was formed by the fusion of the golden core and part of the primordial spirit's power. However, the soul formation stage required the nascent soul to go through thousands of tempering and merge with the primordial spirit and the body. No matter which part of the nascent soul, primordial spirit and body, nothing could go wrong. For the corporeal body, even if it was damaged, it could be regenerated with the power of the nascent soul. However, if it was contaminated by impurities, it had to be removed. It was the same for the nascent soul. If it was contaminated by the death qi, it could never merge with the corporeal body and the nascent soul to advance to the deity transformation stage. Exactly. Nie Wuxiang nodded. You've also noticed, right? Could he still be considered a human? If it wasn't for his profound cultivation, he would have long been tortured into a corpse by the death qi. Mo Tiange recalled her behavior in Carefree Valley and suddenly understood. Back then, you used devil crystals to absorb dead aura just to deal with your master? Nie Wuxiang nodded, then sighed. When I saw the magic crystal back then, I faintly felt that it would be a breakthrough. My master is too powerful. Ordinary methods can't deal with him at all. Only the devil crystals can absorb one's essence energy and have a unique effect. They're a completely different type of method, making it impossible for him to defend against them. Is it the death qi or the essence qi? Why don't I understand? Mo Tiange was a bit confused. Since he's plagued by the death qi is his greatest enemy, isn't it? Nie Wuxiang shook her head. The death qi is indeed his greatest enemy, but it's hard to see its effect in the short term. Besides, with his cultivation level, he can successfully suppress the death qi, so there's no way to take his life. I used the devil crystals to absorb the death qi for two reasons. One was to use the death qi to destroy the Immortal's Cave's formation, and the other was to numb him. My master has seen a lot of death qi, so he didn't take it seriously and neglected the real effect of the devil crystals. His body was already weak, and his primordial spirit was trapped. He should have been a dead man long ago. This shows that his soul power is very weak, and he's only relying on his powerful cultivation level to support himself. I used the devil crystals to absorb his essence energy and disperse his soul power. That way, I could have won without a fight. Mo Tiange thought about what she said over and over again. Eventually, she sighed and said, You've really racked your brains to make such a good move. Nie Wuxiang smiled bitterly. If it wasn't because I couldn't defeat him, why would I have to do this? I can only blame myself for being too weak. Blame yourself for having too little time. Mo Tiange shook her head and said, with your qualifications, advancing to the late stage of the nascent soul realm is only a matter of time, and it's not impossible for you to advance to the deification realm. It's just that you're not sure he can wait until that moment. Yes. Nie Wuxiang looked a bit absent-minded. Master has lived for too long. The two of them looked at each other in silence. They only felt that time was passing. No matter how powerful a cultivator was, there would always be a moment when he or she would disappear, and the path to immortality was still far in the future. After a long time, Mo Tiange said, "What's your next plan?" Nie Wuxiang thought for a while, then shook her head. "Nothing." Mo Tiange heaved a sigh. "How about you stay here with me?" Nie Wuxiang was stunned and hastily waved her hand. "I'm a devil cultivator, and Xianqing School is a Dao school." I'm not asking you to join Xianqing School, Mo Tiange said with a smile. "In any case, I'm a nascent soul Lord Taoist now. It shouldn't be a problem for me to ask a friend to stay here for a long time, right?" Nie Wuxiang thought about it carefully. There were only a few places she could go. Yunzhong was in chaos. The current situation was confusing, and there were killings everywhere. Shaoyang, this place was even more chaotic. Without strength, people could only be trampled on. In the Celestial Pole, she was Master Songfeng's disciple, so this matter wasn't difficult to investigate. Originally, Lang Tu Mountain was secretive enough, but now it was exposed. She was seriously injured and couldn't fight with others, so it was best for her to find a safe place to slowly recuperate. Thinking about it this way, Xianqing School was really the best choice. First of all, Xianqing School was very powerful now. Whether it was in the Celestial Pole or Yunzhong, no one would come to Xianqing School's encampment to cause trouble. Second, Mo Tiange was her most trusted friend. She saved her from danger many times, so there was no one more trustworthy than her in this world. Nie Wuxiang thought for a while. After confirming it, she agreed. "Okay, thank you." Mo Tiange waved her hand. "There's no need to thank me between us." She took out a jade talisman. "You can recuperate here. If you need anything, use this talisman to inform the supervising disciples here." Nie Wuxiang took the jade talisman. "Then I won't be polite." The two of them talked about their experiences in the past few years, as well as the problem of cultivating and recuperating before Mo Tiange left the stone room to let Nie Wuxiang rest. Qin Shi's trip took 2 months before he returned. As soon as he returned to his cave, Mo Tiange asked, "What took you so long? Do you have any clues?" Qin Shi said, "Nowadays, wars are frequent. I didn't go at the right time, and there aren't many cultivators in Qinzhong City. Senior Marshal Brother Zhenyang said there would be a large-scale trade fair in a month or so he told me to wait. I thought Qinzhong City was a trade city, so there might be some people with special abilities who knew something, so I agreed. In these 2 months, I collected some information. After Senior Marshal brothers and sisters came back, they also gave us a lot of ideas." As he said that, he took out a small bag and poured out many jade slips. After a rough look, there were about 30 to 50 of them. Mo Tiange was dumbfounded. "This is..." Qin Shi smiled helplessly. "Not all of them are real clues. I wrote down all the similar ones." He picked out one of the jade slips and said, "This is what Master and the others concluded after discussing for us to refer to." Mo Tiange looked at the jade slips one by one. After a long time, she finally finished reading them. She frowned slightly and said, "It takes time to experiment with these things. They can't be decided in a short time. And so we're busy." The two of them moved the things into the virtual sky world. Qin Shi asked, "Are you all right in these 2 months?
How's Nie Wuxiang?"
"She's recuperating, so I left her here." Mo Tiange roughly described their conversation and said, "I think she's clear-headed, so she should be fine." I also asked her, and she said the reason why Master Songfeng became like that was because he practiced that wrong cultivation technique. Since Great Primordial Devil Technique was put together with a 5-spirit sacrifice temple, it must be a cultivation technique that far surpasses the present world, so it's impossible for it to have this kind of shortcoming. As long as you comprehend it correctly, there won't be any problems. That's good. He was just taking precautions. Since he left her here, he had to be on guard. Right, Jing Xingji is also in Kunzhong City. He told me something. Oh. Mo Tiange was very interested in Jing Xingji's current situation. What did Venerable Swordsman Stillwater say to you? Qin saw that she really wanted to laugh, so he said helplessly, "Don't laugh at him. He's already very serious now." Very serious, Jing Xingji. Mo Tiange nodded seriously, then burst out laughing again. It's so hard to imagine. When she was done laughing, Qin said, Jing Xingji told me he found clues about the Qilin.
Huh.
Mo Tiange was surprised. So fast? What kind of clues? Where did he get them? Qin sat down at the table, fiddled with the jade slip, and asked, Do you still remember the Qilin the Spirit Beast Sect's founders mount? Of course I remember. Spirit Beast Sect uses the Qilin as their sect's emblem. All the cultivators in the Celestial Pole knew about this. Jing Xingji said he accidentally found records about the Spirit Beast Sect's founder's mount in the sect's library. On a whim, he looked for Hualingyun from Spirit Beast Sect and asked for some information. Mo Tiange said with surprise, how could they easily tell others about the founder's mount? Was Jing Xingji deceived? Qin smiled faintly. I don't think so. He paid a price that Hualingyun couldn't refuse. What was it? The white tiger's breath in his hand. Qin said. He showed Hualingyun the white tiger sword and gave him some of the white tiger's breath. Mo Tiange nodded thoughtfully. For Spirit Beast Sect, this is really an irresistible temptation. Who said it wasn't? Hualingyun told him the origin of the Qilin mount in detail on the spot, then went back to closed-door meditation. Mo Tiange laughed, then grabbed him and asked, Does this Qilin have anything to do with the Qilin we're looking for? Jing Xingji speculated that it should. Should? Qin, she shook his head gently. There's still too little information. Moreover, the world changed not long ago. So many descriptions can't be accurate anymore. We need more time to confirm. Mo Tiange breathed a sigh of relief. There's no hurry. Wushang still needs a long time to heal. Quickly tell me, where did the Spirit Beast Sect's Qilin come from? Qin took a sip of tea, then said neither too fast nor too slow, in Yunzhong.
Huh?
This location gave Mo Tiange a headache. Do we have to go to Yunzhong? You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.